Hi everyone, and welcome back to Revenge Recall, Reddit Stories. This post comes from the Relationship Advice subreddit, shared by user, deleted, and recovered by David DM23. I'm a 33-year-old guy, and I called off my wedding and broke up with my 31-year-old fiancée because of her parents. Hey everyone, I'm not even sure where to start, it's been a wild ride. I was with my fiancé for 4 years. For the past 2 years, we'd been living together in a house we bought jointly. Our wedding was supposed to be in 3 months, but everything fell apart after a big issue with her parents. It started when she went with her mom to check out her wedding dress. While they were driving, her mom kept asking about our wedding expenses, things like the makeup artist, dress, photographer, venue, and our total budget. My fiancé told her everything, and her mom freaked out when she heard we were spending around $22,000. Just to be clear, we didn't ask her parents for any money, and they didn't offer to give us anything either. That night, her mom talked to her dad about it, and they decided they wanted to talk to me. My fiancé called and asked if I could come over. I wasn't happy about it, felt like they were interfering, but I respected them, so I agreed to go. When I got there, straight from work, they jumped right in. They said we were spending too much money, especially on the photographer, and said we should only invite family. Then her dad brought up that my fiancé was paying 60% of the wedding and that it should be 50-50. I was furious inside, but I kept calm and listened. Then I spoke up. I said something like, I understand you're worried about your daughter and our finances, but this is something she and I planned together. We've discussed it and agreed on everything. We didn't ask for any money from you. We just want you to be there and enjoy the wedding. I added, this is our wedding. If she wants to change something, that's something we'll talk about. As a couple, we're happy to hear your thoughts, but in the end, this is our choice, not yours. Then I explained, she's paying more because I'm covering the mortgage and house maintenance. I can't afford to pay more toward the wedding right now. She takes care of groceries and bills, so she's been able to save more. Finally, I said, we already live together. Everything we get from the wedding, cash or gifts, will be shared, so it doesn't matter who pays more. We agreed on that together. But now you're trying to control our decisions and money, and that's not okay. It feels like you're acting like this is your wedding, not ours. And just so you know, I said all of this calmly and respectfully. Then her parents started getting really angry and started insulting my family, especially the fact that I helped support my 86-year-old dad. They said we were being irresponsible with our money. I let them finish talking, then told them they had no right to bring my family into this. That wasn't okay, especially since neither of our families was being asked to pay for anything. My fiancé and I have been living in our own house for 2 years now, handling everything on our own. I felt like her parents were being way too controlling when it came to her money, and honestly, they seemed to be losing it over the whole thing. The worst part? My fiancé just sat there and stayed quiet. That really hurt me. I thought she would speak up for us, or at least for me, because her parents were way out of line. Also, her parents didn't want her to have a joint bank account with me. They said she should keep her money separate, which I agreed with in general, but the joint account was only going to be for shared home expenses. At that point, I stopped trying to argue and said, if you're not happy with the budget, then she and I can look at it again. If she wants changes, we'll talk about it together. But her parents wouldn't stop. They kept demanding things. It wasn't advice anymore, it was stuff like, I want fewer people invited, or you should be paying more. We went home and reviewed the budget again. She made a few changes, and we agreed on it. Then she looked at me and said, you do know what my parents were trying to say, right? I said, no, not really, and honestly, it's not their place to get involved. We're adults and should make our own choices. I told her that from now on, if we have any big issues or money discussions, we should talk about them between ourselves, and not bring her parents into it. She looked at me with this annoyed face and said, I don't care what you want. I'll talk to my parents about anything I want. I responded, but we're starting our own family now. We should be the ones making decisions, just the two of us. She didn't agree. That's when I lost my patience. I told her, if this is how things are going to be, then I can't build a future with you. I can't be in a marriage where your parents control everything. I wasn't saying she couldn't talk to them at all, but some things should stay private between a couple, and if she did want to talk to them, they should give their thoughts to her, then we could talk it over together at home. But them jumping in like it's their business? That didn't feel right to me. So the next day, I called off the wedding. 2 days later, I ended the relationship. Of course, she cried and begged me to change my mind, but I couldn't. I couldn't live a life where her parents were always interfering. I'm really sad about how it all ended. I really tried to build a future with her, but this wasn't going to work. I know I'm a good person. I was raised well. I don't have any addictions. I know what it means to be a good partner and how to build a family. But I felt alone, like I was the only one fighting for us. Thanks for reading. I'm just here looking for some support. Any thoughts are welcome. First off, huge respect to you for standing your ground. If your backbone isn't made of steel, it must be made of something even stronger. I completely agree with everything you said, how you view relationships, how you expect a partnership to work, and I totally support your choice to end the engagement and walk away. Not that my support changes anything, but I'm 100% on your side. Her parents were totally out of line, and the fact that she was okay with it, and still wanted to share personal and financial stuff with them? That's a major red flag. Like you said, it's fine to talk to your parents sometimes, but certain things, especially about money and private decisions, should stay between the couple. That's how you build trust. That's how you set healthy boundaries. So, what do you all think? Would you have done what OP did? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Community comments. Greek Dudiana says, she didn't stand up for you, even though you both planned the wedding budget together. I don't even understand what her parents were trying to say. You may not have paid exactly half for the wedding, but you were handling the mortgage. That's a huge deal. Plus, you're helping your own family, and not asking either side for money. Her parents had no right to be angry, and she should have supported you. If she was already picking fights over the wedding, it was probably never going to work. You made the right call. Miss Me Pudding says, maybe she had doubts about the wedding and talked to her parents, who then stepped in. If that's true, it means she couldn't communicate with you directly and used them to do it for her. Or maybe her parents are just super nosy. Either way, you dodged a big mess. Good for you for knowing your limits and sticking to them. 875 milliliters says, something very similar happened to me last year with my ex. We were together and living together for 7 years. Then I met his parents for the first time. They live in another country. After we met and spent a month together, my ex's parents started getting too involved in our lives. They kept telling us what to do, expecting us to follow their advice, and constantly judged me. I didn't get along with them at all. And I told my ex the same thing you told your girlfriend. There are some things that should only be discussed between us. Her parents shouldn't control us. But my ex said, they're my parents. They raised me, spent money on me, and I need to take care of them and make them happy. And as my girlfriend, I want you to show them your best side, so they'll like you instead of hate you. I want all of us to live together happily. That's when I decided to end our 7-year relationship. He didn't stand up for me when his parents judged me for no reason. That made me really sad and disappointed. He chose his parents over me. Additional information from OP's comments. We talked about our finances and agreed on everything, but when her parents spoke to us, she didn't say anything. This made her parents think the wedding was all my idea and that I was pushing for an expensive wedding, which wasn't true. Anyway, the wedding was supposed to make her happy, and I wanted it to be within our budget, but it seemed like she needed her parents' approval. I didn't tell her not to talk to them, but there are certain things you don't share with your parents, and they shouldn't get involved in everything. It was really important to me that she had my back, since we both planned everything together, but it felt like her parents didn't want her to grow up and make her own decisions. Since she didn't speak up for me, I felt like she wasn't willing to defend our choices. What happens later if we have kids, and her parents want to control everything? This situation made me feel like she picked her parents over me, even though we both agreed on the wedding. After the breakup, we talked multiple times this week about what happened. She thinks it wasn't a big enough issue to end our relationship and believes I was rude to her parents. I was shocked. I didn't say much, just listened to her. I don't think I can give her a second chance. She's old enough to know that I need her support, and without it, I can't move forward with anything. Update 1. Hi everyone, I took some time off. I read all your comments and spent the next few days thinking about what you said. Thank you for the advice. During our break, my ex and I didn't talk for almost 2 weeks. Then she called and wanted to meet. I agreed. She started by apologizing for how inconsiderate she was about the situation. She didn't understand why I took her parents' involvement so seriously, because it's normal for her, but after thinking about it, She realized I was just trying to set boundaries and that her parents had crossed the line. No one had ever done that before. We talked about our relationship and she cried, saying she still wanted us to be together and was willing to work things out. I listened and explained that I wasn't trying to be rude to her parents. I wanted to know how she would handle things if her parents tried to get involved again. She said that if they do, she'll listen to them but talk to me about it afterward. She promised not to put me in the same situation again. She agrees that we should make our own decisions. She can still talk to her parents, but the final decision will be ours. There are things that should stay private, and she now understands that. I thought about it, and I realized I still love her. We both spent time reflecting, and I felt we had grown stronger, especially her. The fact that she came to me showed she was serious about making things right. After our talk, I suggested we sleep on it and meet up for lunch the next day. At lunch, I told her I didn't want to be with anyone else, and she said the same. So, we're going to give our relationship another try, with clear boundaries for her parents. This has been the longest 2 months of my life. I'm glad things worked out, but I wouldn't want to go through this again. It was tough, but at the same time, I feel like we're stronger as a couple now, and anything is possible. It's been just over a month since we decided to give our relationship another try, but I'm sorry to say, things haven't improved. In fact, they got worse. The first few days seemed fine. I thought we were doing okay, but then, she started saying I should apologize to her parents and make them happy so we could move on. I told her I hadn't done anything wrong, and I thought we had already agreed on our boundaries as a couple. That's when things went downhill, because I didn't want to apologize for something I didn't feel was my fault. She gave me the cold shoulder, and we stopped communicating well. I was already stressed out with work, and all the drama with her parents, and a little bit with her, was really affecting my health. So, we decided it was better to break up. Honestly, I don't understand why she pushed for us to try again if her plan was to force me to apologize to her parents. I don't see how she thought that would fix everything. Thankfully, I had been going to the gym, or I might have lost my mind. Thanks to everyone on Reddit for the support. Now, I can start a new chapter in my life without worrying about the what-ifs. Commentary. Wow, OP, that must have been really draining. It's crazy how she agreed with everything you said just to get back together, then tried to force you to apologize. That's just weird. Like, no way I'd apologize after that. Good for you for standing your ground. Now you don't have to worry about any what-ifs. Thanks for sharing your story, and best of luck with everything in the future. And that's the end of the video. I hope you liked these stories. I really enjoyed reading them to you. If you did, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, or even share it with others who might enjoy it. Also, if you have time, check out the links in the description, from our Discord community to channel merch. And finally, thank you for watching. It means a lot to me. I'll see you in the next video.
They say money changes people. I never truly understood what that meant until I watched my own brother transform from someone I'd take a bullet for into a stranger wearing a designer suit and a fake smile. I'm Emma Mitchell, 34, and until 6 months ago, I was the proud sister of Marcus Mitchell, Silicon Valley's newest self-made success story. At least, that's what Forbes called him in their 30 Under 30 feature. The truth? Well, that's a bit more complicated. Growing up, Marcus and I were inseparable. Just 14 months apart, we were more like twins than regular siblings. While our parents worked double shifts at their restaurant to keep us fed and clothed, we looked after each other. I helped Marcus with his math homework. He scared away the boys who tried to bully me in middle school. When I got my first job at 16, I split every paycheck with him so he could buy the computer parts he dreamed about. One day, he'd say, hunched over his latest technological experiment, I'm going to create something amazing. Something that'll change the world. And when I do, we'll never have to worry about money again. I believed him. How could I not? Marcus had always been brilliant, even if he was terrible at showing it in school. While other kids played video games, he learned to code. While they went to parties, he built computers from scraps he found at the local electronics recycling center. I was his biggest cheerleader, his constant supporter, and sometimes his only friend. When our parents' restaurant failed during the recession of 2008, I put my college plans on hold. Instead of pursuing my dream of becoming an architect, I took a job as a bank teller to help keep our family afloat. Marcus was devastated when I told him. "You can't give up college," he argued, his eyes filling with tears. "You've worked so hard for this." But I just smiled and hugged him. "It's not giving up," I told him. "It's investing in our future. You're going to do great things, little brother. Someone needs to make sure you get there." And for 10 years, that's exactly what I did. I worked my way up from teller to branch manager, taking night classes when I could afford them. Every spare dollar went into supporting Marcus's dreams. When he needed seed money for his first startup attempt, I emptied my savings account. When that failed, I took out a personal loan to fund his second try. When that one crashed too, I refinanced my small condo to give him one more shot. "Third time's the charm," I joked, handing him the check for $50,000. He hugged me so tight, I could barely breathe. "I'll pay you back double," he promised. "Triple. You'll see, Eve. This time, it's going to work." And surprisingly, it did. Mitchell Solutions launched in 2020, just as the world was going digital. Their security software caught the attention of several major tech companies, and suddenly Marcus was everywhere. Tech magazines, business podcasts, startup conferences. My little brother had become the success story he'd always dreamed of being. I couldn't have been prouder. Even when he moved to a luxury apartment in San Francisco and started wearing suits that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment, I was just happy to see him living his dream. The fact that he hadn't paid back any of my loans yet didn't bother me. He was busy, I told myself. Building an empire takes time. Then came the announcement. Marcus was getting married to Victoria Blackwood, daughter of telecommunications mogul Robert Blackwood, the woman he'd met at some exclusive tech conference 3 months ago. The wedding would be at the Blackwood estate in the Hamptons, with a guest list that read like a who's who of Silicon Valley. "It's going to be perfect," Marcus told me over the phone, his voice distant and distracted. "Victoria's planned everything. Oh, and she needs another $50,000 for the flowers and the ice sculpture. Can you help out? Just one last time." I was at the bank within the hour, taking out another loan against my condo. This was my brother's big day, his chance to truly become part of the elite circle he'd worked so hard to join. Of course, I would help. The wedding invitation arrived 2 weeks later, a gorgeous thing of handmade paper and gold leaf. I was admiring it at my kitchen table when my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Need to talk. Video call in 5. When his face appeared on my screen, something was different. The warmth in his eyes, the one that had survived all our struggles, was gone. In its place was something cold, calculating. "There's been a change of plans," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "About the wedding. Victoria thinks it would be better if you didn't come." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "What? It's just..." He cleared his throat. "The guest list includes some very important people. CEOs, investors, potential partners. Victoria thinks... Well, we think it might be awkward having a bank manager there. It could affect some delicate business relationships." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. "Marcus, I'm your sister. I've supported you through everything. I've given you every penny I had. And I appreciate that." He cut in, his voice taking on the smooth, practiced tone I'd heard him use in interviews. "But this is about the future of Mitchell Tech. We're in talks with major investors. The Blackwoods have connections we can't afford to jeopardize. You understand, right? I didn't understand. Not at all. But as I opened my mouth to argue, to remind him of everything we'd been through together, a notification popped up on my laptop. Someone had just tried to access my work email, specifically the folder where I kept documentation of all my loans to Marcus. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about the wedding. This was about erasing the past, creating a new narrative where Marcus Mitchell was truly self-made, with no messy family ties to complicate his perfect success story. You're right, I heard myself say, my voice steady despite the tears burning behind my eyes. I understand completely. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, staring at the wedding invitation I could no longer use. Then I opened my laptop and started digging through years of financial records, emails, and text messages. If Marcus wanted to rewrite history, he should have remembered one thing. I'm the one who taught him to always keep receipts. What I found in the next few hours would change everything. But that night, I just sat there, watching the sun set through my kitchen window, mourning the loss of the brother I thought I knew. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. The real story, the one that would eventually attract the FBI's attention, was about to unfold in ways none of us could have predicted. The thing about working in banking for 15 years is that you develop an eye for patterns. Numbers tell stories if you know how to read them. And the story I uncovered in the week following Marcus's wedding invitation was one that made my blood run cold. It started with a simple review of the loans I'd given him. $50,000 for his first startup attempt in 2018. Another $50,000 for the second try in 2019. The $50,000 that supposedly launched Mitchell Tech in 2020. And now, the final $50,000 for his wedding to Victoria. $200,000 total, all meticulously documented in my personal records. But something wasn't adding up. I remembered Marcus's first failed startup attempt, a mobile payment app that never made it past the development stage. The second was a cryptocurrency trading platform that collapsed within months. Both failures were painful, but they seemed honest. Technical issues, market timing, the usual startup problems. The third attempt, Mitchell Tech Solutions, was different. It succeeded almost overnight, securing major contracts with tech giants within months of launch. The industry called it a miracle. Now I was starting to wonder if it was something else entirely. Just checking some historical records, I told my assistant at the bank when I requested access to all transaction records related to Marcus's business accounts. As his primary bank, we had handled most of Mitchell Tech's early financial operations before they moved to bigger institutions. What I found sent chills down my spine. The $50,000 I had given Marcus for Mitchell Tech had never been deposited into the company's account. Instead, it had been transferred through a series of smaller transactions to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. But Mitchell Tech had still launched with significant capital, $2 million to be exact. Where had that money come from? I spent 3 sleepless nights tracing the money trail. Bank statements, wire transfers, corporate filings. I followed every breadcrumb. Each discovery felt like another punch to the gut. The prestigious security software that had put Mitchell Tech on the map? It wasn't Marcus's creation at all. The original code had been developed by a small tech startup in Eastern Europe, a company that had mysteriously gone bankrupt just weeks before Mitchell Tech launched. Their entire development team had vanished, their office abandoned overnight. And the $2 million that launched Mitchell Tech, it had been routed through the same Cayman Islands account where my $50,000 had disappeared. The money originated from a series of compromised corporate accounts. Companies that had reported major security breaches in early 2020. My brother, my brilliant little brother who I'd supported all these years, hadn't created a revolutionary security software. He'd stolen one, using hacked funds to finance the operation. The evidence was there in the patterns of transactions, in the timestamps of code commits, in the suspicious coincidences that no one had bothered to investigate because everyone was too busy celebrating the next tech wonderkind. "Oh God, Marcus," I whispered to my empty apartment, staring at the wall of financial data I'd assembled. "What have you done?" But the real bombshell came when I dug deeper into Mitchell Tech's current operations. The security software they sold to major corporations had a hidden feature, a backdoor that allowed unauthorized access to client systems. Mitchell Tech wasn't just a fraud, it was potentially the largest corporate espionage operation I'd ever seen. My phone buzzed, another text from Marcus. "Hey Em, about the wedding. Victoria's family is willing to compensate you for any inconvenience. Name your price." I looked at my laptop screen, at the evidence of years of fraud and theft. They thought they could buy my silence with money, the same way they thought they could erase my existence from Marcus's carefully crafted story. My hands shook as I typed out my reply. "No price needed. I understand completely." Then I turned back to my laptop and began organizing the evidence. Every transaction, every stolen line of code, every compromised client account. I documented it all. Years of banking experience helped me create an airtight paper trail, one that even the best lawyer's money could buy wouldn't be able to dispute. I also started receiving strange emails, thinly veiled threats from anonymous accounts, warning me to mind my own business and forget about the past. Someone had definitely noticed my digging. Time was running out. The wedding was in 3 days. The guest list included CEOs of companies that had been compromised by Mitchell Tech's backdoor, investors whose money had been used to launder the stolen funds, and tech journalists eager to celebrate another self-made success story. Perfect. I booked a flight to New York and packed my laptop. In my carry-on, I placed a USB drive containing every piece of evidence I'd gathered. A second copy was safely stored in an encrypted cloud account, set to automatically send to the FBI and SEC if anything happened to me. As I locked up my condo, another text from Marcus arrived. "Em, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Just name your price. Everyone wins." I thought about the brother who used to share his dreams with me, who promised we'd change the world together. I thought about the man he'd become, willing to steal, lie, and threaten to maintain his facade of success. "You're right," I texted back. "Everyone will get exactly what they deserve." The next morning, I boarded a flight to New York. In 48 hours, I would crash my brother's $1 million wedding. But first, I had some visits to make. To the FBI field office in Manhattan, to the SEC's Enforcement Division, and to a few very interested journalists. Marcus had always said he wanted to make headlines. Well, I was about to help him do exactly that. As the plane took off, I closed my eyes and remembered something our parents used to say back in the restaurant. The truth, like cream, always rises to the top. It was time to let the truth rise. The Hampton estate where the wedding would take place was visible from the air as we descended into New York. A sprawling mansion by the ocean, its grounds transformed into a fairy tale venue for what the society pages were calling the tech wedding of the year. Little did they know, it was about to become famous for very different reasons. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear. From my hotel room in Southampton, I could see the steady stream of luxury cars heading toward the Blackwood estate. Caterers, florists, and event staff had been bustling since dawn, preparing for what People magazine had dubbed the tech industry's royal wedding. I took my time getting ready. The slate gray dress I'd chosen was expensive but understated, professional rather than celebratory. My laptop bag, containing everything needed to destroy my brother's carefully constructed world, felt heavy on my shoulder. "Mom, this is a private event," the security guard at the estate entrance said when I pulled up in my rental car. "I'll need to see your invitation." I smiled and handed him my business card instead. "I'm Emma Mitchell, sister of the groom. There's been a slight misunderstanding about my invitation. Why don't you call Marcus and let him know I'm here?" The guard looked uncertain, but I saw the moment he registered my last name. He stepped away to make a call, and I waited, watching more guests arrive in their designer outfits and luxury vehicles. 5 minutes later, Marcus appeared, looking immaculate in his custom tuxedo. But I could see the tension in his jaw, the barely controlled panic in his eyes. "Em, what are you doing here?" he hissed, pulling me aside. "We discussed this. You can't be here." "Actually," I said, keeping my voice level, "we need to talk. Now, before the ceremony." "There's nothing to talk about. I've offered to compensate you." "For what, Marcus? For the $200,000 in loans? For erasing me from your life? Or for using my banking credentials to help you launder stolen money?" The color drained from his face. Behind him, I could see Victoria approaching in a silk robe, her professional makeup only half complete. "Marcus, darling, is everything all right?" she called out. Then she saw me, and her perfectly shaped eyebrows drew together in annoyance. "What is she doing here?" "She was just leaving," Marcus said quickly, gripping my arm. "Weren't you, Em?" I pulled free of his grasp. "No, actually, I think I'll stay. I've brought a wedding gift that everyone needs to see." Victoria's face hardened. "Security," she called out. "I wouldn't do that," I said calmly, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Unless you want the FBI agents parked down the street to come in early. They're very interested in Mitchell Tech's operations, especially that back door in your security software, the one you've been using to steal corporate secrets from your clients." A small crowd had gathered now, drawn by the drama unfolding at the entrance. I could see Robert Blackwood, Victoria's father, pushing through the onlookers. "What's going on here?" he demanded. "Nothing," Marcus said quickly. "Just a family misunderstanding. And please, let's talk about this privately." I shook my head. No more private talks. No more secrets. I turned to address the growing crowd of guests. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for interrupting the festivities. But there's something you need to know about the man you're here to celebrate." "Stop this," Marcus pleaded, reaching for me again, but I was already pulling out my laptop. "Your invitation said no gifts were necessary, but I brought one anyway. A presentation about how Mitchell Tech really started, about where that revolutionary security software really came from, about what it's been doing to your company's systems all this time." Robert Blackwood stepped forward, his face darkening. "What is she talking about, Marcus?" "She's lying," Victoria cut in. "She's just jealous of Marcus's success. Security, remove her?" "Before you do," I said loudly, "you might want to check your phone, Mr. Blackwood. I believe you just received some very interesting emails about your future son-in-law's business practices." The crowd murmured as phones started buzzing. I timed my evidence dumps perfectly. Emails going out to all major Mitchell Tech clients and investors just as I arrived at the wedding. Marcus lunged for my laptop, but it was too late. I'd already connected it to the venue's massive display screens, the ones meant to show romantic photos during the reception. Instead, they now display transaction records, code snippets, and irrefutable evidence of years of fraud. That $2 million startup capital, I announced to the stunned crowd. Stolen from hacked corporate accounts, the security software you're all using. Stolen from a small company in Eastern Europe after Marcus arranged for their mysterious bankruptcy. And that backdoor you never knew about. It's been collecting your corporate secrets for 2 years. The chaos that erupted was almost beautiful in its completeness. CEOs frantically calling their IT departments, investors shouting into phones, journalists who'd come to cover a society wedding suddenly finding themselves with a much bigger story. "You ruined everything," Marcus snarled, his carefully crafted mask finally cracking completely. "I gave you a chance to name your price." "Some things aren't for sale," I replied. "Like the truth or family loyalty." Victoria had disappeared, along with her father. In the distance, I could hear sirens approaching. Federal agents. The FBI's arrival was almost anticlimactic after everything else. They moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency, heading straight for Marcus. As they led him away in handcuffs, past shocked guests, and frantically clicking cameras, he looked back at me one last time. For a moment, I saw a flicker of that little boy who used to share his dreams with me. "Why, Em?" he asked, his voice breaking. "I would have given you anything." "Because you forgot something important, little brother," I said softly. "Success built on lies isn't success at all. It's just a bigger lie." The aftermath was exactly what you'd expect. Mitchell Tech's collapse made headlines for weeks. Tech wonderkind revealed as corporate spy, ran alongside wedding day arrest exposes Silicon Valley fraud. The FBI's investigation uncovered even more than I had. A network of cybercrimes spanning 3 continents. Victoria and the Blackwoods quickly distanced themselves, their PR team working overtime to paint themselves as victims. Most of Mitchell Tech's clients filed lawsuits. The stolen money was traced and returned, including my $200,000 in loans. I testified at Marcus's trial 3 months later. He didn't look at me once during my testimony about how he'd used my banking access to facilitate his crimes. He took a plea deal in the end. 15 years with possibility of parole, plus restitution to all his victims. The day after the sentencing, I received a letter from him in prison. "Dear M," it began. "I forgot who I was trying to become someone else. I forgot that real success was having a sister who believed in me enough to sacrifice everything. I forgot that the dreams we shared were worth more than all the fake success in the world. I know it's too late to fix what I broke, but I hope someday you can forgive me. Your brother, Marcus." I read the letter several times, tears blurring the words. Then I put it away in a drawer and went back to work. Not at the bank. I'd taken a new job, heading up fraud prevention for a major tech company. Turns out my experience with Mitchell Tech made me quite valuable in that field. Sometimes late at night, I look at old photos of Marcus and me from before all this happened. I remember the brother who dreamed of changing the world, who just wanted to make something amazing. I wonder where that boy went wrong, and if he's still in there somewhere behind prison walls. But I don't regret what I did, because sometimes loving someone means holding them accountable. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let the truth come out, no matter how much it hurts. They say money changes people, but I've learned it's not the money. It's what people are willing to do for it. The choices they make, the lines they cross, the people they're willing to sacrifice. In the end, Marcus got what he'd always wanted. His name in headlines, his story talked about in Silicon Valley, just not in the way he planned. As for me, I've got a new dream now. Helping other companies protect themselves from people like my brother. Making sure other families don't have to go through what I did. Because some things really aren't for sale. Truth, integrity, family. And sometimes, the hardest lessons are the ones we learn from those we love the most. 3 generations of the Sullivan family had managed other people's money. My grandfather started our firm in 1962 with nothing but a desk, a telephone, and an unshakable belief in ethical investment practices. My father expanded it into Sullivan Wealth Management, serving some of Boston's most prestigious families. Then came my brother Michael and me, the twins who were supposed to carry the legacy forward together. Funny how together can mean such different things to different people. My name is Alexandra Sullivan, and until 6 months ago, I was the Chief Investment Officer of Sullivan Wealth Management, responsible for over $800 million in client assets. Now, according to my brother, I'm a disgraced former employee who mismanaged everything. The truth, as our clients are about to discover, is considerably more interesting. Miss Sullivan? My assistant Margaret's voice crackled through the intercom. The forensic accountant's report just arrived. I checked my watch. 7:15 a.m. Another early morning in the office, a habit I'd maintained even after Michael's attempted coup. Send him in. James Patterson from Deloitte had the careful demeanor of someone who'd spent decades uncovering financial fraud. He placed a thick folder on my desk. You were right, Miss Sullivan. The irregularities started exactly 18 months ago. I opened the folder, though I already knew what I'd find. 18 months ago, right when Michael had insisted on modernizing our trading platform. Right when he'd started pushing for more aggressive investment strategies. Show me the money flows, I said. Patterson pulled out a series of charts. It's clever. I'll give him that. Small amounts, carefully distributed through a network of shell companies. Most auditors would miss it. But when you know what to look for. I studied the diagrams, remembering the day I'd first noticed something odd in our trading reports. Michael had dismissed my concerns, calling me paranoid and stuck in the past. Old school due diligence is outdated, Lex, he'd said, using the childhood nickname I'd always hated. Modern wealth management requires modern methods. What he meant, I now knew, was that systematic fraud required systematic concealment. The total amount? I asked Patterson. $47.3 million diverted from client accounts over 18 months. The losses were masked by falsified returns reports. Your brother used the firm's strong reputation to prevent anyone from looking too closely. I nodded, thinking of our father, who died 2 years ago. His last words to us had been about trust, the trust our clients placed in us, the trust we needed to place in each other. Does anyone else know about this yet? Patterson shook his head. Just my team, working under strict confidentiality. Though I should mention, he hesitated, your brother's planning something big. My sources say he's announcing a merger next month. Sullivan Wealth Management is being acquired by Platinum Capital Partners. Of course, Michael needed a way to bury the evidence before anyone noticed. A merger would mean new systems, transferred accounts, conveniently lost records. Thank you, James. Your final report? We'll be ready for the SEC next week. Are you sure you want to do this? He's your brother. I looked at the photo on my desk. Michael and me at our college graduation, his arm around my shoulders, both of us grinning at the camera. 15 years ago, before money and power had revealed who he really was. He stopped being my brother the moment he betrayed our client's trust. After Patterson left, I reviewed the morning's trading reports. Michael had kept me on as a senior advisor, a ceremonial role meant to maintain client confidence during the transition. Little did he know, I'd spent the last 6 months building my case, documenting every irregular transaction, every falsified report. The intercom buzzed again. "Miss Sullivan, your brother's here." I quickly tucked the forensic report into my safe. "Send him in." Michael strode into my office like he owned it, which technically he now did. At 35, we still looked enough alike to give people pause. Same dark hair, same green eyes. But where I'd inherited our father's caution and integrity, Michael had developed a hunger for more. "Working early as usual, Lex? You know you don't have to anymore. Your advisory role is more flexible." I smiled blandly. "Old habits. What brings you by?" "The Hamilton Anniversary Gala next week. I want you there." The Hamilton family had been clients since our grandfather's time. Their annual charity gala was Boston's premier financial event. Of course, I wouldn't miss it. "Good." He perched on my desk, a habit he knew I hated. "I'll be making some announcements. Big changes coming. The merger with Platinum Capital will take us to the next level." "Fascinating. Will you be announcing this special investment vehicle too? The one you've been running through Cayman Islands accounts?" For a split second, Michael's mask slipped. Fear flickered in his eyes before his smooth confidence returned. "Still chasing conspiracy theories, sis? This is why you needed to step back. You're too caught up in details, missing the bigger picture." "Oh, I see the bigger picture perfectly, Michael. Every decimal point of it." He stood, straightening his custom-made suit. "Just be there next week. Smile, support the changes. It's not like you have a choice anymore." After he left, I opened my laptop and checked my encrypted email. The SEC's forensic team had been quietly investigating for months, ever since I'd submitted my detailed report. Their timing would be critical. My phone buzzed. A text from Diana Martinez, my oldest friend and the Hamilton family's private attorney. "Meeting today, 2 p.m. Bring everything." I glanced at the safe containing Patterson's report. Michael thought he was consolidating his power. Instead, he was walking into a trap 18 months in the making. The old Sullivan Wealth Management offices occupied a historic brownstone in Boston's financial district. As I walked through the trading floor, I noticed the changes Michael had made. Sleek digital displays showing real-time market data, young traders aggressively working phones, the family portraits replaced by modern art. In the elevator to the parking garage, I ran into Victor Thompson, our head of compliance, or what was left of compliance after Michael's modernization. "Ms. Sullivan," he said quietly, "I've been meaning to talk to you. Some of these new trading patterns—" "Not here, Victor." I handed him my card with a new phone number written on the back. "Call me tonight. Use this line only." He nodded, understanding, another piece falling into place. Diana's office was in a modern high-rise overlooking the harbor. She greeted me with a hug, then closed her door and activated her white noise generator, a necessary precaution in today's financial world. "How solid is your evidence?" she asked without preamble. I opened my briefcase and laid out Patterson's preliminary findings. 18 months of systematic fraud. 47 million diverted through shell companies. False returns reported to clients. And a merger plan designed to bury it all. Diana whistled softly. The Hamilton family's exposure? About 12 million. Michael used their accounts heavily because of their long-standing trust in our firm. Elizabeth Hamilton is going to be furious. Diana shook her head. She chairs 3 regulatory committees. If Michael knew, he doesn't. He thinks old money is quiet money. He forgets that quiet doesn't mean powerless. Diana studied me. The gala's next week. Your brother's planning to announce the merger there, along with my retirement. He wants to consolidate control before anyone looks too closely at the books. And the SEC? I allowed myself a small smile. Their audit team is ready. They're just waiting for the right moment. A room full of witnesses, Diana nodded, including the state's financial regulators, all the major players in Boston banking, and the press. Perfect. I gathered my documents. Michael always did have a flair for dramatic announcements. I'm just helping him make it memorable. Back in my office, I reviewed the final pieces of my plan. Michael had spent 18 months building his house of cards, thinking his sister was too naive, too trapped in old-fashioned methods to catch him. He forgot that our grandfather's most important lesson wasn't about making money. It was about protecting it. About maintaining the trust that 3 generations of Sullivans had built. As the sun set over Boston Harbor, I thought about the gala. Now just 7 days away. Michael would have his moment in the spotlight, his big announcement. And I would have mine. The week before the Hamilton Gala passed with excruciating slowness. I maintained my usual routine, arriving early, reviewing reports, meeting with select clients. Michael was too busy preparing for his triumph to notice that each meeting, each document review, was another piece of evidence being carefully preserved and documented. The SEC team is in position, Diana told me over a secure line. They've coordinated with the state regulators. Everything's ready. I was in my office, watching the sun rise over Boston Harbor. The same view our father had loved, though the skyline had changed. And the Hamilton family? Elizabeth knows something's coming. She's arranged the seating chart to put all the key players at the main table. Regulators, banking executives, major clients. Perfect. I checked my watch. The forensic accountant's final report. Delivered to the SEC yesterday. Your brother's going to regret not checking those Cayman accounts more carefully. A soft knock interrupted us. Miss Sullivan? Margaret entered, carrying a garment bag. Your gala dress arrived. I smiled, remembering another lesson from our father. In finance, appearance matters. Thanks, Margaret. Is everything else prepared? She nodded, understanding the real question. For 6 months, she'd helped me gather evidence, coordinate with investigators, and maintain the illusion of compliance with Michael's new regime. All the documents are backed up and secured. External drives delivered to 3 different law firms. After she left, Diana asked quietly, "Are you sure about this?" Once it starts, he stole from our clients, Diana. Used their trust to enrich himself. What would you do if someone stole from your family? The night of the gala arrived clear and cold. The Hamilton estate, a sprawling mansion overlooking the Atlantic, glowed with warmth and old money confidence. Rolls-Royces and Mercedes deposited Boston's financial elite at the entrance. I arrived early, wearing a classic black evening gown that had been my mother's favorite. Michael was already there, commanding attention in the center of the grand ballroom. "Ah, there's my sister," he called out too loudly. "The last of the old guard, aren't you, Lex? But change is good, isn't it? Progress is inevitable." I smiled, accepting a champagne flute from a passing waiter. "Indeed it is, brother." Elizabeth Hamilton approached, elegant in her 70s. Her family had trusted the Sullivans with their wealth for 3 generations. "Alexandra dear, so glad you could make it. Though I hear rumors this might be your last gala with the firm." "Changes are coming," Michael interrupted smoothly. "Big announcements tonight. The future of wealth management is evolving." Elizabeth's eyes met mine briefly. She knew. The Hamilton family hadn't maintained their fortune for 2 centuries by being naive about money. The ballroom filled quickly. I recognized faces from regulatory agencies, banking executives, journalists from the financial press. At exactly 8 o'clock, Michael took the stage, radiating confidence. "Distinguished guests, valued clients, welcome to the 50th Annual Hamilton Investment Gala. Tonight is about more than celebration. It's about the future. I'm proud to announce that Sullivan Wealth Management is entering a new era." I moved quietly through the crowd, positioning myself near the main exit. Diana stood ready with her laptop, connected to the ballroom's presentation system. "Merger with Platinum Capital Partners, creating one of the largest wealth management firms in New England." The crowd murmured appreciatively. Michael was in his element, promising growth, innovation, modernization. Then he turned to me, his smile sharp. "And with this transition comes another announcement. My sister Alexandra, after careful consideration, has decided to retire. Her old-fashioned methods, while admirable, are no longer suited to modern finance." "Actually," I said clearly, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room, "I have an announcement of my own." Michael's smile flickered. "Lex, this isn't the time." "Oh, but it is?" I nodded to Diana, who connected her laptop to the display screens. "Let's talk about modern finance, brother. Specifically, let's discuss the $47.3 million you've diverted from client accounts over the past 18 months. The screens filled with transaction records, bank transfers, shell company documentation. Michael's face went pale. "These are false accusations." "Ms. Sullivan," a grave voice interrupted. Harold Winters, head of the SEC's Boston office, stood up. "Are these the records you submitted to our office?" "Yes, sir, along with the forensic accountant's report detailing exactly how my brother used our trading platform to mask unauthorized transfers through a network of Cayman Island accounts." The room erupted in chaos. Elizabeth Hamilton's voice cut through the noise. "Michael Sullivan, are you saying you stole from my family?" "No, I was investing aggressively, pursuing higher returns. Through unlicensed offshore vehicles." Another regulator stood, "without disclosure or client authorization." I watched as Michael's carefully constructed world crumbled. SEC agents moved to block the exits. Diana distributed copies of the forensic report to key regulators. "The federal investigation has been ongoing for months," I announced to the stunned crowd. "Every transaction documented, every shell company traced. The evidence has been preserved, despite recent attempts to modernize our record-keeping system." Michael lunged for me, his composure shattered. "You planned this. You betrayed your own brother." Security officers grabbed him before he reached me. I stepped closer, keeping my voice low. "No, Michael. You betrayed our family's legacy. You betrayed our client's trust. I just exposed it." The next few hours were a blur of statements, documents, and arrests. Michael was led out in handcuffs, still protesting that he'd done nothing wrong. The merger announcement became a very different kind of press story. Later that night, I stood in our father's old office, now mine again by emergency board vote. Elizabeth Hamilton sat across from me, examining account statements. Your father would be proud, she said finally. He always said the true measure of a financial advisor isn't how much money they make, but how well they protect it. Even from family? I asked softly. Especially from family. She stood, straightening her elegant jacket. The Hamilton assets will stay with Sullivan Wealth Management, dear. Under your management only. Over the next few months, the full story emerged. Michael had started small, skimming from larger accounts, masking the losses with falsified returns. Success made him bolder, greedier. The merger was his exit strategy, a way to hide his fraud in the chaos of consolidation. The SEC investigation revealed everything. Michael faced federal charges for securities fraud, money laundering, and criminal conspiracy. Most of the stolen funds were recovered from his offshore accounts. I rebuilt Sullivan Wealth Management on our grandfather's original principles: trust, transparency, and genuine client service. We lost some accounts in the scandal, but gained others who appreciated our commitment to ethical practices. 1 year later, I received a letter from Michael, written from federal prison. You could have warned me, Lex, given your own brother a chance to make it right. I wrote back one line: I gave you the same chance you gave our clients. None. These days, Sullivan Wealth Management has a new compliance system. Every transaction is triple-checked, every investment vehicle thoroughly vetted. The Hamilton family still holds their annual gala, though it's a bit more subdued now. My father's portrait hangs in my office, next to our grandfather's original license. Sometimes, late at night, I look at them and remember what this business is really about. Not just managing money, but managing trust. As for Michael, he's serving 15 years in federal prison. Plenty of time to think about the true cost of betraying trust. The merger he planned never happened, but a different kind of change did. A return to the principles that built our firm. Last week, a young analyst noticed some unusual trading patterns in a client's account. Instead of dismissing her concerns, I spent 3 hours reviewing the transactions with her. They turned out to be legitimate, but I gave her a bonus anyway. For being diligent, I told her, in this business, trust is everything, and trust requires vigilance. She asked me later if it was hard, exposing my own brother's crimes. I thought about Michael's face at the gala, about our father's last words about trust, about 3 generations of Sullivan integrity. The hardest decisions, I said, are often the clearest ones. Now, when clients visit our offices, they still see the Sullivan name on the door. But underneath, there's a new phrase carved in small, elegant letters: trust, earned and protected since 1962. Because in the end, that's what this story is really about. Not just money, not just family, but the fundamental trust that makes the financial world work. Michael forgot that. I never will. 3 generations of the Sullivan family had managed other people's money. My grandfather started our firm in 1962 with nothing but a desk, a telephone, and an unshakable belief in ethical investment practices. My father expanded it into Sullivan Wealth Management, serving some of Boston's most prestigious families. Then came my brother Michael and me, the twins who were supposed to carry the legacy forward together. Funny how together can mean such different things to different people. My name is Alexandra Sullivan, and until 6 months ago, I was the Chief Investment Officer of Sullivan Wealth Management, responsible for over $800 million in client assets. Now, according to my brother, I'm a disgraced former employee who mismanaged everything. The truth, as our clients are about to discover, is considerably more interesting. Miss Sullivan? My assistant Margaret's voice crackled through the intercom. The forensic accountant's report just arrived. I checked my watch. 7:15 a.m. Another early morning in the office, a habit I'd maintained even after Michael's attempted coup. Send him in. James Patterson from Deloitte had the careful demeanor of someone who'd spent decades uncovering financial fraud. He placed a thick folder on my desk. You were right, Miss Sullivan. The irregularities started exactly 18 months ago. I opened the folder, though I already knew what I'd find. 18 months ago, right when Michael had insisted on modernizing our trading platform. Right when he'd started pushing for more aggressive investment strategies. Show me the money flows, I said. Patterson pulled out a series of charts. It's clever. I'll give him that. Small amounts, carefully distributed through a network of shell companies. Most auditors would miss it. But when you know what to look for. I studied the diagrams. Remember, my name is Sarah Mitchell, and after 10 years as a senior financial analyst at Global Innovations Corp., I learned that sometimes the biggest threats to a company don't come from outside competitors. They come from the people signing the checks. I still remember my first day at GIC, fresh from getting my CPA, eager to prove myself in one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. Back then, Marcus Reynolds had just been appointed as CFO, bringing with him an impressive track record of financial growth from various Fortune 500 companies. The key to success in corporate finance, Marcus told me during my first performance review, is knowing which questions not to ask. I should have recognized that red flag, but I was too focused on learning from his supposed expertise. For 8 years, everything seemed perfect. Our quarterly reports showed consistent growth. Our stock price kept climbing, and Marcus was hailed as a financial genius. I worked my way up from junior analyst to senior financial manager, earning a reputation for attention to detail that would eventually save my career and expose a massive fraud. The first hint that something was wrong came during our Q3 review last year. I was reconciling our international subsidiary accounts when I noticed subtle discrepancies in the transfer pricing documentation. Small amounts, skillfully hidden in thousands of legitimate transactions, but they didn't quite add up. You're being too thorough, Sarah, Marcus said when I brought it to his attention. These international accounts are complex. Some irregularities are normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I began keeping detailed records of every suspicious transaction, storing copies of documentation on a secure private server, not because I suspected fraud yet, just because it was my job to be thorough. Then came the Asian expansion project. GIC was planning to acquire 3 tech companies in Singapore, and I was assigned to conduct the financial due diligence. That's when I found it. A pattern of systematic fraud, hidden in plain sight. Marcus had created a brilliant scheme. He was using our international acquisitions to hide massive financial manipulations. Money would flow through multiple subsidiaries, getting lost in a maze of transactions before disappearing into offshore accounts. The amounts were staggering. Over $100 million siphoned off over 5 years. I spent 2 weeks documenting everything, cross-referencing transactions, building an airtight case. I knew I had to report it to the board, but I needed to be certain. One mistake could ruin careers, including mine. The night before I planned to present my findings, I received an urgent email from Marcus requesting an early morning meeting. Walking into his office at 7 a.m., I knew something was wrong. 2 security guards stood by his desk, and Janet from HR sat in the corner, her expression carefully neutral. We've discovered some disturbing information, Sarah, Marcus began, his voice cold. It seems you've been manipulating our financial records quite extensively. My blood froze as he slid a folder across his desk. Inside were transaction records, modified to make it appear that I had been the one orchestrating the fraud. My signatures had been forged on key documents, timestamps altered, approval chains rearranged. The evidence is quite clear, Marcus continued. You've been using your position to hide fraudulent transactions. The board has been notified. I looked at the forged documents, mind racing. He had planned this perfectly, using my own attention to detail against me. Every transaction I had investigated had been doctored to implicate me instead. Clean out your desk, he ordered, smirking slightly. Security will escort you out. And Sarah? I'd avoid talking to anyone about this. Fraud charges can lead to serious prison time. I stood there, years of work and reputation crumbling around me. But as I looked at Marcus's smug face, something inside me calmed. He thought he had won. He thought he had destroyed all evidence of his crimes. He hadn't. What Marcus didn't know was that I had learned more than just accounting during my years at GIC. I had learned how digital forensics worked, how to create undeniable audit trails, and most importantly, how to protect truth in a way that no one could erase. As security escorted me out, I heard Marcus already on the phone. Yes, we caught it in time. The acquisition review can proceed as planned. I smiled slightly, thinking about the external auditors who would arrive next week to review the acquisition. They would find something interesting in their review, something that would make them dig deeper than Marcus ever expected. Because sometimes the best defense isn't fighting back immediately. Sometimes it's letting your enemies think they've won while the evidence they didn't know about slowly comes to light. Marcus thought he had buried the truth under forged documents and false accusations. What he didn't know was that the real evidence was already safely documented, time-stamped, and waiting to be discovered by people he couldn't control. The forensic audit team would arrive in exactly 7 days, and they were about to find the biggest financial fraud case of the decade. Part 2. The preparation. The first thing I did after being escorted out wasn't call a lawyer. Instead, I drove to a small cyber cafe 2 towns over and accessed my secure private server. Marcus had surely seized my work computer, but he didn't know about my personal backup system. They're doing a complete audit of your department, messaged Tham from it, a friend who had helped me set up my secure documentation system months ago. Reynolds is having everything scrubbed. Of course he was. But what Marcus didn't understand about modern forensic accounting was that every attempt to hide evidence creates new evidence. From my secure location, I watched through encrypted logs as Marcus's team combed through company servers, methodically altering records. Each change they made was automatically documented by the hidden protocols I'd put in place. My apartment became my war room. 3 laptops displayed different aspects of my counter strategy. Screen 1. The official GIC financial records being systematically altered by Marcus's team. Screen 2. My secured backup records, showing the original transactions. Screen 3. A real-time log of every change they were making, each one strengthening my case. The external auditors are from Anderson and Price. Messaged Lisa from the finance department. She'd been my mentor when I started and knew something was wrong. Top forensic team. Reynolds is trying to rush them through before the acquisition. Perfect. Anderson and Price had a reputation for being thorough. They wouldn't be rushed. 2 weeks after my firing, Marcus made his first major mistake. In his hurry to cover the money trail, he authorized a series of correcting entries that contradicted previous quarterly statements. Getting questions from the SEC about revised filings, Lisa reported, The changes aren't matching up with the original submissions. I smiled, watching the discrepancies multiply. In financial fraud, it's not the original crime that usually exposes you, it's the cover-up. Then came an unexpected ally. James from the Singapore office reached out to a secure channel. "Those acquisition targets you were investigating," he wrote, "2 of them are shell companies. Just empty offices and paperwork. I've got photos and documentation." I thanked him but warned him to stay quiet. The forensic audit would need to discover this independently to be credible. 3 weeks in, signs of Marcus's growing desperation started showing. The auditors were asking too many questions, digging too deep into the international transactions. "Sarah," his email read, "perhaps we acted hastily. Would you consider consulting on some historical reconciliations? For appropriate compensation, of course." I didn't respond. A few days later, another email arrived offering a generous settlement in exchange for signing some backdated documents. His nervousness was showing. The auditors must have found something. "They're working through weekends now," Lisa reported. "Marcus has the team recreating transaction histories, but the numbers aren't adding up. Can't make the cash flows balance." Of course they couldn't. International transfers have too many independent verification points. Change one record, and you have to change hundreds of others to maintain consistency. 1 week before the acquisition deadline, I received an urgent message from David, our external counsel, who'd quit after my firing. "You need to see this," he wrote, attaching internal memos. "They're planning to pin everything on you." Created a whole paper trail of forged authorizations. I checked my secure logs. Every document they forged, every alteration they made, was being independently recorded and timestamped. The truth was growing stronger with every lie. The final week was intense. Marcus's team worked around the clock, trying to patch holes in a fictional narrative. Each fix only created new discrepancies. The auditors found the Singapore shell companies, Lisa messaged. "They're expanding the scope of their investigation." Marcus is furious. His final attempt to reach me came through my old supervisor. "Whatever you think you have, it won't matter. Take the settlement. Walk away." I sent back one reply, looking forward to the audit findings. The night before the auditor's final presentation to the board, I checked my documentation one last time. Original transaction records, secured and verified, forged document trail, fully documented, alteration timestamps, all logged, Singapore evidence, independently verified, cash flow discrepancies, clearly highlighted. "You really think this will work?" Tom messaged. "They've got the board convinced you're the criminal." "That's the beauty of forensic accounting," I replied. "Numbers don't lie, even when people do." I went to bed that night feeling strangely calm. Tomorrow, in front of the board and the SEC observers, Marcus would learn why you should never frame a financial analyst who understands digital forensics. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Lisa. Auditors called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Marcus doesn't know what they found. But I did, and tomorrow, everyone else would too. Part 3. The Revelation. The morning of the audit presentation, Global Innovation's headquarters was unusually quiet. Through my sources, I learned that the Anderson and Price team had requested a closed-door session with the full board and SEC representatives. Marcus had no choice but to agree, though he insisted on presenting his version of events first. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, standing confidently at the head of the boardroom. "Before the audit team presents their findings, I want to address the unfortunate situation that led to this review. I watched through Lisa's secure feed as Marcus launched into his carefully prepared narrative. As you know, we recently discovered significant financial irregularities, he continued. Thanks to our internal controls, we identified the responsible party, a trusted employee who abused her position. The boardroom door opened, interrupting his speech. Catherine Wong, lead forensic auditor from Anderson and Price, walked in flanked by two SEC investigators. Mr. Reynolds, Catherine said calmly, I believe we should proceed directly to our findings. Marcus's smile flickered. This wasn't part of his plan. Of course, he said smoothly, taking a seat. Though I think you'll find our internal investigation has been quite thorough. Indeed, Catherine replied, connecting her laptop to the presentation system. Let's begin with those internal investigations. The screens came to life, displaying a complex timeline of transactions. What you're about to see, Catherine announced, is one of the most sophisticated financial fraud schemes we've encountered. And its revelation comes thanks to one of the most detailed forensic documentation trails I've ever seen. Marcus shifted uncomfortably as Catherine began her presentation. First, let's examine the official records, she said, pulling up GIC's books. According to these, Sarah Mitchell orchestrated a complex fraud scheme. However, the screen split, showing parallel transaction records. These are the original records, preserved through independent blockchain verification. Notice the timestamps, digital signatures, and authentication chains. The board members leaned forward, studying the discrepancies. Every alteration made to company records over the past month was automatically logged. Catherine continued. Each attempt to hide the original fraud created new evidence of deliberate manipulation. She clicked through a series of slides, revealing the full scope of Marcus's scheme. Shell companies in Singapore with no actual operations. Transfer pricing manipulations hiding money movements. Forged approvals with impossible timestamps. Backdated documents contradicting official filings. But the most damning evidence, Catherine said, comes from the very attempt to frame Ms. Mitchell. The screens show a detailed analysis of the forged documents used against me. These forgeries contained a fatal flaw, Catherine explained. They used digital signatures generated after Ms. Mitchell's system access was revoked. In other words, these documents could only have been created by someone with CFO-level authorization. Marcus stood up abruptly. This is speculation. Actually, one of the SEC investigators cut in. It's evidence, and there's more. The next hour was a methodical destruction of Marcus's entire fraud scheme. Every transaction, every forgery, every attempt at cover-up was exposed in precise detail. In total, Catherine concluded, we've documented $127.3 million in fraudulent transactions over 6 years. The attempt to frame Ms. Mitchell appears to have been triggered by her discovery of the Singapore shell companies. The board chairman looked physically ill. And the acquisition targets? Fake, Catherine confirmed. Empty offices and paid actors. The acquisition was meant to hide the money trail permanently. Marcus tried one last time. These are just technical glitches. These are federal crimes. The SEC investigator interrupted. Mr. Reynolds, I suggest you contact your attorney immediately. What happened next was a blur of activity. Security arrived to escort Marcus out. The SEC investigators began sealing off financial records. The acquisition was immediately halted. By evening, I received a call from the board chairman himself. Ms. Mitchell, he said, sounding exhausted, we owe you an enormous apology and a debt of gratitude. Would you be willing to meet tomorrow to discuss returning to GIC? We need someone with your skills to help clean up this mess. I had a better offer in mind. 1 year later, I'm no longer just a financial analyst. I'm the youngest CFO in GIC's history, leading a completely restructured finance department. The systems I designed to catch Marcus's fraud have become standard practice across the industry. Marcus? He's facing 20 years in federal prison. Turns out we weren't his first target, just the first one who kept better records than he did. Sometimes late at night, reviewing audit reports in my new office, Marcus's old office, I think about that final board meeting. About his face when he realized what had happened. He thought he was framing an ordinary analyst, but what he really did was trigger the most sophisticated forensic trap ever created. The irony. If he'd been honest, I would have helped him improve our financial systems legitimately. But he chose fraud, forgetting the first rule of modern finance. In a digital world, the truth leaves traces that cannot be erased. These days, when I speak at accounting conferences, someone always asks about the case. They want to know if I planned it all from the beginning. I just smile and tell them what I've learned. In finance, the best defense isn't just following rules. It's creating systems where truth can always be verified. Because sometimes, the quiet analyst in the corner office isn't just checking numbers. Sometimes, they're building a shield to protect the entire company from those who would destroy it from within. GIC recovered, stronger than before. Our stock price has doubled since the fraud was exposed, built on a foundation of genuine growth and absolute transparency. Every quarter, when I present our financial results, I remember what my father, also an accountant, always told me. Numbers tell stories, Sarah. Make sure yours tells the truth. Thanks to modern forensic accounting and careful documentation, my story told the truth louder than any lie Marcus could create. And that's a balance sheet I'm proud to stand behind. Something wasn't right with these numbers. I stared at my computer screen, rubbing my lower back as my unborn daughter shifted restlessly. The quarterly financial reports from our Singapore office showed a pattern that made no sense, unless someone was deliberately obscuring transactions. I'm Rachel Chin, 34 years old, and until recently, I was the senior financial analyst at Global Dynamics Corporation, a position I'd held for 6 years. My specialty was identifying patterns in complex financial data, finding irregularities that others missed. It's what had earned me rapid promotions and the trust of our CFO, Marcus Thompson. At least, that's what I thought. Rachel, you look troubled, Sarah whispered, peering over my cubicle wall. My closest friend at work, she'd been keeping an extra eye on me since I entered my 3rd trimester. Is it the baby? No, it's these reports, I murmured, gesturing at my screen. Look at these transfers. They're structured to appear routine, but the amounts don't match our typical operating patterns. Sarah frowned, her accounting background allowing her to quickly grasp what I was seeing. How long has this been going on? At least 18 months, I replied, pulling up a spreadsheet where I'd been tracking the anomalies. Small discrepancies at first, easily dismissed as rounding errors or currency fluctuations. But they're getting bolder. This quarter alone, there's over $2.7 million that I can't properly trace. Have you told Marcus? I shook my head, one hand absently rubbing my swollen belly. Not yet. I want to be absolutely certain before I raise any alarms. This kind of pattern usually indicates money laundering, Sarah finished quietly. Rachel, be careful. Remember what happened to Jim in compliance. when he started asking questions about the Dubai contracts. I remembered. Jim had been let go during a restructuring that somehow only affected his department. His replacement never followed up on his concerns. "I'll be fine," I assured her. "I'm due to start maternity leave in 3 weeks anyway. I just need to document everything properly first." That evening, I stayed late at the office, methodically copying files and taking screenshots of the suspicious transactions. My background in forensic accounting before joining Global Dynamics had taught me the importance of thorough documentation. Every anomaly was cataloged, every pattern noted, with timestamps and system logs to prove when I'd accessed the information. As I worked, my daughter kicked vigorously, as if sensing my tension. "Easy there, little one," I murmured. "Mommy just needs to finish this." I was so focused on my task that I barely noticed Marcus walking past my desk, stopping when he saw me still working. "Rachel, it's almost 8. You should be home resting." I quickly minimized my screens, smiling up at our CFO. In his mid-50s, Marcus had always projected a fatherly image, but something in his expression tonight made me uneasy. "Just wrapping up some quarterly analyses," I said casually. "Want everything organized before my leave starts." He nodded, but his eyes lingered on my computer screens. "Anything concerning?" "Nothing urgent," I lied smoothly. "Standard variance analysis." Good, he said. "Don't stay too late. Your health needs to come first right now." After he left, I quickly finished copying the last set of files to my personal encrypted drive. Something about Marcus's appearance had triggered my instincts. Why was he still here this late? His calendar had shown him in meetings off-site all afternoon. The next morning, I couldn't shake my sense of unease. I arrived early, planning to secure one final set of records, but my computer wouldn't boot up. System maintenance, our egg help desk, told me when I called. Several terminals are affected. Should be resolved by afternoon. But when I tried to log into the financial system from Sarah's computer, my credentials were denied. "That's weird," Sarah said, watching me try again. "Want me to log in with my ID?" I started to answer, but a sharp pain cut through my lower abdomen. "Rachel?" Sarah's voice seemed to come from far away as another contraction hit. I gasped. "The baby has other plans." Everything happened quickly after that. Sarah called an ambulance while our office administrator notified my husband, James. By the time James met me at the hospital, I was already in active labor. 8 hours later, Emma Grace Chen came into the world, 3 weeks early, but perfectly healthy. In the joyful chaos of those first days with Emma, I almost forgot about the financial irregularities I'd discovered. Almost. But during late-night feedings, as I cradled my daughter, my mind kept returning to those numbers, to Marcus's odd behavior, to my mysteriously timed computer issues. I had just finished feeding Emma one morning, 18 days into my maternity leave, when my phone rang. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. "Rachel," he said, his voice professionally sympathetic. "I hope you and the baby are doing well." "We are, thank you," I replied, suddenly alert despite my exhaustion. "I'm calling because we've had to make some difficult decisions regarding departmental structure. In reviewing our operations, we've determined that your position has become redundant." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I wasn't entirely surprised. "I see," I said calmly, years of professional training keeping my voice steady. "And this couldn't wait until I returned from maternity leave." "The changes are effective immediately," Marcus continued, ignoring my question. "Given your years of service, we're offering 8 weeks severance, contingent upon signing a standard release agreement. HR will email the paperwork shortly. What about my maternity benefits? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Unfortunately, those terminate with your employment, but COBRA information will be included in your packet. After Marcus hung up, I sat in the nursery rocking chair, holding Emma close as I processed what had just happened. They'd waited until I was on leave, vulnerable, exhausted from newborn care, to terminate me. They probably expected me to sign whatever they sent quickly, grateful for any severance while dealing with a new baby. They didn't know I'd spent 15 years learning how financial criminals think, how they hide their tracks, how they silence potential threats. They didn't know that every suspicious transaction, every irregularity I'd found was safely documented and stored away from company servers. Most importantly, they didn't know that 2 days before going into labor, I'd sent a detailed letter to myself via certified mail, documenting my concerns and the exact locations of my evidence. A simple lawyer's trick, establishing a paper trail and timestamp that couldn't be erased. I looked down at Emma, peacefully sleeping in my arms. "Your mommy may be sleep-deprived," I whispered, "but she's not stupid." Opening my laptop one-handed, I began composing 2 emails. The first to Lisa Martinez, my former colleague at the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. The second to Robert Chen, my brother and one of the top forensic accounting partners at Deloitte. The next few weeks would be interesting indeed. Sarah called that evening, furious about my termination. "The official story is that your role was eliminated in a restructuring," she said, her voice tight with anger. "But they've already posted a job opening that looks suspiciously like your position with a different title." "Have they?" I said mildly, making notes. "That's interesting." "Rachel, this isn't right. It has to be related to what you found in those reports. Marcus has been acting strange ever since you left, having closed-door meetings with people from the Singapore office, and this morning, they announced a systems upgrade that's limiting access to historical financial records. They're covering their tracks," I said, unsurprised. "Have they announced my replacement yet?" "That's another thing. They're bringing in someone from Singapore, David Wong. He worked with Marcus at his previous company." I remembered seeing Wong's name on several of the suspicious transactions. "Perfect," I murmured. "What are you going to do?" Sarah asked. "Right now, I'm going to feed my daughter," I replied. "But tomorrow?" "Tomorrow, I start showing global dynamics exactly what happens when you underestimate a new mother who knows where all the bodies are buried." I spent the next few days reviewing my evidence while Emma napped. The pattern was clearer now, that I could see it all together. The Singapore office was being used to launder money from somewhere, likely one of our Chinese manufacturing partners. Small amounts at first, disguised as routine business transactions, but growing bolder as they went undetected. Except I had detected them, and I had proof. The severance agreement arrived by email, along with a letter formally documenting my termination due to organizational restructuring. The terms were insulting: 8 weeks' pay in exchange for waiving all claims against the company, including any rights to report suspected wrongdoing to regulatory authorities. They really should have had better lawyers review that agreement. I was feeding Emma when Robert called. "Little sister," he said, his tone serious despite the affectionate greeting, "I've reviewed everything you sent. This isn't small-time creative accounting. We're looking at systematic money laundering, potentially tens of millions. How long have you known?" "I started noticing patterns about 3 months ago," I replied, adjusting Emma as she fussed. But I didn't have concrete proof until just before going into labor. And they fired you as soon as you went on leave. Convenient timing. Very, I agreed. What do you think? I think, Robert said slowly, that Global Dynamics is about to learn why it's a bad idea to mess with my sister. Lisa's team at the FBI is very interested in your documentation. They're particularly intrigued by the connections to certain Chinese companies that have been under investigation. How interested? Interested enough that they want to meet as soon as you're up for it. They're willing to come to you, given the baby. I looked down at Emma, now sleeping peacefully. Tell them I'm available tomorrow afternoon. It's time to show Marcus that maternity leave doesn't mean I've lost my teeth. The next day, as I sat in my living room with 2 FBI financial crimes investigators and my brother, I realized that my termination might have been the best thing that could have happened. Free from corporate constraints, I could finally share everything I'd found. The real sophistication is in how they layered the transactions, I explained, pointing to a flowchart I'd created. See how each transfer seems legitimate in isolation. It's only when you map them all together that the pattern emerges. Special Agent Martinez nodded appreciatively. This is detailed work, Rachel. Most people would have missed these connections. Most people didn't spend 3 years tracking money launderers in Asia. I replied. I recognized the methodology. It's similar to cases I worked on before joining Global Dynamics, which they would have known if they'd actually checked your background, Robert added with a smile. Their mistake, I agreed, shifting Emma in my arms as she stirred. What happens next? We'll need to move carefully, Agent Martinez said. We've been building a case against several of these Chinese companies for months. Your evidence could be the key to unraveling their entire network. But if Global Dynamics gets wind of the investigation too soon, they'll destroy evidence. I finished. They're already trying. Sarah told me they're doing a systems upgrade that's limiting access to historical records. Classic covering of tracks, Robert muttered. We'll need to move fast. How would you like to handle this, Rachel? Agent Martinez asked. You could be a confidential informant, or we could take a more direct approach. I considered my options carefully. Part of me wanted to stay in the shadows, to let the FBI handle everything while I focused on my daughter. But another part, the part that had spent years building my career, that had worked through difficult pregnancies and morning sickness to earn my position, wanted justice. Direct approach, I decided. They tried to silence me by firing me when I was most vulnerable. I want them to know exactly who brought them down. Agent Martinez smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. We'll need you to do something that might feel uncomfortable. I raised an eyebrow. What did you have in mind? Sign their severance agreement. What? Robert interjected. That would waive her rights to. No, I interrupted, suddenly understanding. It wouldn't. That clause about reporting to regulatory authorities, it's unenforceable. Dodd-Frank specifically protects whistleblowers regardless of any severance agreements. Exactly, Agent Martinez confirmed. Sign it. Let them think you're cowed and desperate. Meanwhile, we'll set up surveillance and start following the money trail you've uncovered. I looked down at Emma, sleeping peacefully against my chest. How long do you need? Give us 2 weeks to get everything in place. Then we move. I nodded, a plan forming in my mind. 2 weeks is perfect. Just long enough for them to think they've won. Just long enough for Marcus to get comfortable. Just long enough, I thought but didn't say, to remind Global Dynamics that they should have checked exactly what I knew before trying to discard me. That evening, I signed the severance agreement and emailed it back to HR. Then I composed one more email to Marcus himself. "Thank you for the opportunity to work at Global Dynamics," I wrote, keeping my tone professional and slightly desperate. "I understand that business needs change. I appreciate the severance offer and hope we can maintain a positive professional relationship." Let him think I was backing down quietly. Let him think maternal exhaustion and financial pressure had defanged me. In 2 weeks, he would learn just how wrong he was. 2 weeks passed quickly in the haze of newborn care. Emma settled into a routine, giving me precious hours between feedings to refine my documentation and coordinate with the FBI team. Sarah kept me updated on developments at Global Dynamics, each piece of news confirming that we were on the right track. "They're rushing through the system upgrades," she texted one evening. "It is working overtime to migrate financial records. Everyone's locked out of the archives until it's complete." Perfect. They were doing exactly what we'd anticipated, creating an electronic trail of their attempts to hide evidence. Each deleted file, each modified record would only strengthen the case against them. David Wong, my replacement, had arrived from Singapore and immediately begun implementing new protocols for financial reporting. According to Sarah, he called an all-hands meeting to announce that historical records were being standardized to match international formats. He keeps emphasizing that any discrepancies we notice are just conversion artifacts, Sarah reported. "But Rachel, some of these numbers don't make sense even after conversion." "Document everything," I told her, "but don't raise any flags. Let them think everyone's accepting their explanations." The FBI surveillance was already yielding results. Agent Martinez called with updates every few days, her excitement growing as they mapped the network of transactions I'd uncovered. "The money trail leads to 3 shell companies in the Cayman Islands," she told me during one call, "all connected to a Chinese manufacturing conglomerate that's been on our radar for years. We've never been able to prove how they were moving funds to legitimate businesses until now." "How much are we talking about?" I asked, burping Emma after her morning feeding. "Initial estimates suggest over 50 million in laundered funds over the past 2 years. But that's just what we can trace through Global Dynamics. There could be more through other companies." I whistled softly. No wonder they were so quick to push me out when I started noticing patterns. "About that," Agent Martinez said, her tone shifting, "we've been monitoring Marcus Thompson's communications. He's been in regular contact with executives at the Chinese company, discussing something they call Project Phoenix. Does that mean anything to you?" I frowned, thinking back. There was a meeting about Project Phoenix just before I went on leave. Marcus said it was a potential joint venture, but the financial projections seemed optimistic. "It's not a joint venture," Agent Martinez replied. "Based on intercepted emails, it's their plan to acquire Global Dynamics outright, using funds from the same accounts you flagged." The pieces clicked into place. They're not just using Global Dynamics to launder money. They're trying to buy the company with laundered funds. Exactly. And based on the timeline we've uncovered, the deal is supposed to close next month. I thought about the implications. A Chinese company with known ties to money laundering would gain control of a respected American corporation, using illegal funds to do it. The potential for expanded financial crimes would be enormous. "What's our next move?" I asked. "We're ready to act," Agent Martinez said, "but we need one more piece of evidence. Proof that Global Dynamics leadership knowingly participated in the money laundering scheme." I smiled, remembering something I hadn't yet shared. "Check your email in 5 minutes." After hanging up, I opened my laptop and retrieved a file I'd been saving for the right moment. 3 days before going into labor, I'd recorded a meeting with Marcus, standard practice for all our financial reviews. But this meeting had been different. These transfers from Singapore, I'd said, pointing to specific transactions. The amounts don't align with our normal business operations. Marcus had waved off my concerns. It's all been approved at the highest levels, part of our expansion strategy. But the documentation doesn't support that, I'd pressed. These look more like... Like what, Rachel? His tone had sharpened. Like money laundering, I'd said directly. The patterns match known techniques for disguising the source of funds. Marcus had stared at me for a long moment before responding. You're very observant, Rachel. Too observant. Some things are better left unnoticed, for everyone's sake. It wasn't just a smoking gun, it was a confession. I attached the recording to an email and sent it to Agent Martinez. Her response came within minutes. This is exactly what we needed. Be ready tomorrow morning. And Rachel, you might want to watch the financial news. The next day, I was feeding Emma when my phone exploded with notifications. Global Dynamics stock had been suspended from trading pending a major announcement. Sarah called moments later. The FBI just walked into the office, she said in a rushed whisper. Dozens of agents. They're seizing computers and files. Marcus is being led out in handcuffs. I switched on CNBC just in time to see the breaking news banner. Global Dynamics CEO and CFO arrested in international money laundering investigation. The reporters were scrambling to piece together the story, but the basic facts were already emerging. A months-long FBI investigation had uncovered a massive money laundering operation involving Global Dynamics and several Chinese companies. Arrests were being made on both sides of the Pacific. My phone rang again. Agent Martinez. Turn on the news, she said without preamble. Already watching, I replied. How's Marcus enjoying his new accessories? Not as much as he's going to enjoy what comes next. We're about to announce the role of a corporate whistleblower whose evidence broke the case. Ready to go public? I looked down at Emma, who gazed back with her father's dark eyes. More than ready. The next hours passed in a blur. My name hit the news cycles by noon. By dinner, every major financial publication had the story. New mother uncovered $1 million money laundering scheme during maternity leave. The details captivated everyone. The pregnant analyst who spotted financial irregularities. The company that tried to silence her by firing her during maternity leave. The evidence she'd gathered before giving birth. Forums lit up with discussions about corporate ethics and women in finance. James came home early, bringing champagne he insisted I deserved, even if I was still nursing. To my brilliant wife, he toasted, who brought down an international crime ring while caring for our newborn. But the real satisfaction came the next morning when Robert called with an update from his contacts at Global Dynamics. The board called an emergency meeting, he reported. They're in full panic mode. The stock is going to tank when trading resumes. Marcus and the CEO are looking at serious prison time. And guess what they found in Marcus's emails? Tell me. Explicit discussions about firing you because you were getting too close to their scheme. He specifically mentioned timing it during your maternity leave when you'd be too overwhelmed to fight back. I laughed. How'd that work out for him? Not great, especially since those emails make it a clear case of wrongful termination and pregnancy discrimination on top of everything else. The board wants to settle, They're offering full reinstatement, back pay, accelerated stock options, and a promotion to VP of Financial Compliance. Not interested, I said immediately. I have other plans. Those plans had begun taking shape during my late-night feedings with Emma. The FBI cases had reminded me how much I'd enjoyed forensic accounting, tracking down financial criminals, bringing justice to sophisticated fraud schemes. Actually, I said to Robert, I've been thinking about starting my own firm, specializing in forensic accounting and fraud detection. Think Deloitte might be interested in a partnership. Are you kidding? After this case, every major firm in the country will be calling you. He was right. By the end of the week, I had meetings scheduled with 3 of the Big 4 accounting firms, all interested in establishing forensic accounting partnerships. The SEC had reached out about consulting on complex fraud investigations, and 2 universities wanted me to guest lecture on financial crimes detection. But the most satisfying call came from Lisa at the FBI. The U.S. Attorney's Office wants to talk to you, she said, about testifying against Marcus and the others. When? Next month. They're particularly interested in how you identified the money laundering patterns. And Rachel? They're very aware that you did most of this work while preparing for maternity leave. I smiled, watching Emma sleep in her bassinet beside my desk. Tell them I'm happy to help. I'll just need breaks for feeding the baby. Of course, Lisa laughed. We wouldn't want your daughter to miss watching her mother take down an international crime ring. The headlines continued for weeks. Global Dynamics stock plummeted when trading resumed. The Chinese company's executives were arrested in Hong Kong. David Wong was caught trying to flee to Malaysia with a hard drive full of incriminating documents. Marcus and the CEO were looking at decades in federal prison for money laundering, securities fraud, and conspiracy. The evidence I'd gathered, combined with the FBI's broader investigation, had created an airtight case. Sarah called one evening, still processing everything that had happened. The office is chaos, she reported. Internal auditors everywhere, external investigators combing through every transaction. And you know what's crazy? They found even more suspicious patterns once they started really looking. This thing is bigger than anyone realized. How's morale? I asked, genuinely curious about my former colleagues. Mixed. Some people are scared about their jobs. Others are angry they were deceived. But mostly, people keep talking about you. How you figured it all out while you were pregnant. How you gathered evidence even when you were about to give birth. You're like a legend now. I laughed. Hardly. I just did my job. While creating new life, Sarah insisted. It's inspiring, Rachel. You showed everyone that becoming a mother doesn't make you less capable. If anything, it made you more formidable. Looking down at Emma, peacefully nursing as I reviewed case documents for the prosecution, I had to agree. Motherhood hadn't weakened me. It had made me fiercer, more determined to fight for what was right. 3 months after my terminated maternity leave, I sat in my new office, Emma asleep in a bassinet beside me. The wall held my framed FBI commendation and news articles about the case. My desk displayed a photo of Emma, wearing a onesie Sarah had given her. My mom fights financial crime. My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Martinez. Marcus took a plea deal. 15 years minimum. Sending you the press release before it goes public. I smiled, remembering his dismissive tone during that termination call. He thought firing me during maternity leave would silence me, that a new mother would be too overwhelmed to fight back. He'd never considered that becoming a mother would make me fight harder. My new consulting firm was thriving, with a growing list of clients seeking fraud detection expertise. I'd hired Sarah away from Global Dynamics to be my operations director, and we were building a team of analysts who shared our passion for uncovering financial crimes. Best of all, I set my own schedule, allowing me to balance complex investigations with Emma's needs. The bassinet in my office raised some eyebrows at first, but my results spoke for themselves. If anything, having Emma nearby sharpened my focus. Every financial criminal we caught made the business world a little safer for her future. 1 year to the day after my termination, I received an email from Global Dynamics' new CEO. They were still rebuilding their reputation, struggling to restore trust with investors and clients. Would I consider consulting on their new compliance procedures? I drafted a simple reply. My consulting rate is $5,000 per hour, with a minimum engagement of 100 hours. Additional fees apply for any work conducted during traditional maternity leave hours. Emma, now crawling and babbling, pulled herself up on my desk as I hit send. I lifted her into my lap, breathing in her sweet baby scent. "Never let anyone tell you that motherhood makes you weak," I whispered. "It makes you unstoppable." The next generation of financial criminals would learn that lesson the hard way. They'd learn that underestimating a mother's strength, determination, and capacity for justice was a very expensive mistake. And if they didn't? Well, Emma would be old enough for show and tell soon. Maybe she'd like to visit Mommy's office and watch another corporate criminal learn that vital lesson. After all, the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth. It's teaching our daughters that they never have to choose between motherhood and justice. They can deliver both, sometimes even during maternity leave. I stood in front of my tiny studio apartment mirror, adjusting the intentionally cheap sweater I'd bought from Target. The scratchy material felt strange against my skin, so different from the designer clothes hanging in my real closet across town. But appearances were everything in this charade I'd been maintaining for the past 5 years. My name is Maya Chen, and I'm the secret CEO of Iris Technologies, a $13 million software company that's revolutionizing artificial intelligence applications. But to my family, I'm just their disappointment, the failed artist who never lived up to her potential. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister Jennifer. "Don't be late to Christmas dinner, and please wear something presentable for once." I smiled at the irony. Jennifer, the successful one, had no idea that her entire salary as a senior executive at Morton Digital came from my company's account. I'd acquired Morton through a shell corporation 3 months ago, though the news wouldn't become public until next week. The drive to my parents' suburban home felt longer than usual. Maybe it was the weight of all the secrets I carried, or maybe it was just the dread of another family dinner, filled with subtle jabs and disappointed sighs. As I pulled up in my old Honda Civic, carefully maintained to look exactly as struggling as they expected, I saw Jennifer's new Porsche gleaming in the driveway. "Maya, you're late again," my mother called from the doorway, her voice carrying that familiar note of disapproval. "Jennifer and Richard have been here for an hour already." I stepped inside, inhaling the scent of my mother's traditional Chinese cooking mixed with the pine from the Christmas tree. "Sorry, Mom. The bus was running behind schedule." The bus. Jennifer's voice dripped with disdain as she emerged from the living room, designer dress highlighting her perfectly maintained figure. "Oh, Maya, you're not still taking public transport, are you? Richard and I could help you with a car loan." She gestured to her husband, who was busy typing on his phone. "I have a car," I replied quietly. "It works fine." "That rust bucket? It's embarrassing. You know, there's an entry-level position open in our marketing department. Nothing fancy. but it's better than. She waved her hand vaguely. Whatever it is you're doing now. If only she knew that I'd be signing her next paycheck. Our father emerged from his study, barely glancing up from his iPad. Jennifer's right, Maya. It's time to be practical. You're 32 now. This artistic phase has gone on long enough. I fought back a smile. My artistic phase had generated more revenue last quarter than Morton Digital had seen in the past 3 years. But they didn't know that. To them, I was still the rebellious daughter who dropped out of business school to pursue digital art and web design. They didn't know that those skills had led me to create one of the most innovative AI visualization interfaces in the industry. They didn't know that my freelance work was actually me running a company of over 100 employees. And they certainly didn't know that my tiny apartment was just a front. A carefully maintained deception to keep my real life separate from their judgments. Speaking of work, Jennifer smiled broadly. I have some exciting news. Morton Digital is expanding our AI division. I've been promoted to Executive Vice President of Operations. My mother clapped in delight. My father actually put down his iPad. That's wonderful news, honey. See, Maya? That's what happens when you apply yourself properly. I nodded, congratulating my sister while silently reviewing the reorganization plans I'd approved last week. Jennifer's promotion would last exactly 17 days before the merger announcement. Then she'd learn what it really meant to work in AI development. And that's not all. Jennifer continued, practically glowing. Richard and I are looking at houses in Oakwood Heights. You know, where all the CEOs live. I did know. I just bought a house there myself, though under my company's name. That's great, I said softly. I'm happy for you. Oh, don't look so sad, little sister. Jennifer reached over to pat my hand condescendingly. I'm sure your art will work out eventually. Not everyone can be successful in business. Someone has to make things pretty, right? My father shook his head. I still don't understand why you left business school, Maya. You had such potential. Now look at your sister, Executive Vice President, and you're still living in that tiny apartment, doing freelance work. Actually, I said, feeling a slight spark of defiance, I've been working on some interesting projects lately. There's this new AI visualization system. Please, Jennifer interrupted, rolling her eyes. Leave the real tech talk to the professionals. Making websites for local shops isn't exactly cutting-edge AI development. If she only knew that the revolutionary AI system her team was so excited about implementing was actually my design. I'd sold it to Morton through one of my subsidiaries, knowing they'd jump at the chance to catch up with their competitors. Dinner proceeded as it always did. Jennifer dominated the conversation with stories about her corporate successes. Richard occasionally grunted in agreement while checking his phone. My parents beamed with pride at their successful daughter while shooting concerned glances my way. I pushed my food around the plate, thinking about the merger announcement that would change everything. Part of me wanted to stand up right then and reveal the truth. Imagine their faces if they knew that the failed artist they'd been looking down on for years was actually one of the most successful tech entrepreneurs in the city. But I stayed quiet, just as I had for the past 5 years, because the truth was, their dismissal of my choices had given me something precious. Freedom. Freedom to build something on my own terms, without their expectations or interference. Freedom to prove to myself, not to them, that I could succeed. After dinner, as Jennifer showed off pictures of her new Porsche, my phone buzzed with a message from my actual office. The merger documents were ready for final review. In 1 week, Morton Digital would become a subsidiary of Iris Technologies, and everything would change. Must be nice, I commented softly, looking at Jennifer's car photos. Being so successful. Jennifer's smile was pure condescension. Don't worry, Maya. Not everyone can be a winner in life. At least you're creative. I excused myself early, claiming a freelance deadline. As I drove my carefully maintained old Honda away from their house, I couldn't help but laugh. In exactly 7 days, they would all learn just how creative I could be. But I didn't know then that Jennifer would discover the truth sooner than planned, because that night, she did something that would accelerate everything. She decided to Google her new company's mysterious owner. Later that evening, in my real home, a spacious loft in the city's most exclusive high-rise, I reviewed the merger documents one final time. The terms were clear. Morton Digital would be completely restructured. Most of the executive team would be replaced, including, of course, the newly promoted Executive Vice President of Operations. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Jennifer. Hey sis, quick question. Why does the CEO of Iris Technologies have the same unusual middle name as you? While Mitchell isn't exactly common, I stared at the message for a long time. Then I smiled and typed, Interesting question. Why don't you come by my apartment tomorrow? My real apartment. I'll text you the address. The game was about to end sooner than I'd planned, and honestly, I couldn't wait. The next morning, I stood in my real penthouse apartment, watching the city wake up through floor-to-ceiling windows. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Jennifer, followed by a series of increasingly frantic texts. Maya, what's going on? This can't be right. Your PHONE. Is this some kind of joke? I knew she'd spent the night digging. Jennifer had always been thorough. It was what made her a decent executive, if not a particularly innovative one. By now, she would have found the carefully hidden traces of my success, tech conference keynotes under my full name, industry awards, press releases about Iris Technologies' groundbreaking AI developments. The doorman called up, Ms. Chen, your sister is here. She's quite insistent on coming up. Send her up, James, and maybe have security on standby. Minutes later, my private elevator opened. Jennifer stood there, still in yesterday's clothes, her perfectly maintained appearance showing signs of a sleepless night. What the hell? She stepped into my penthouse, looking around with wild eyes. What is this place? What's going on? Coffee? I offered, gesturing to my kitchen's professional coffee bar. You look like you could use some. Coffee? You want to offer me coffee? Her voice rose hysterically. I just spent all night discovering that my little sister, my struggling artist sister, is actually my boss. I took a sip from my own cup, handcrafted by an Italian artisan. Technically, I'm your boss's boss's boss. But yes, that's the general idea. Jennifer sank onto my Italian leather sofa, her legs seemingly giving out. This isn't possible. You live in that tiny studio apartment. You take the bus. You make websites for local businesses. No, I corrected her gently. I let you believe I live in that apartment. I let you think I take the bus. It was easier than dealing with everyone's opinions about my choices. Easier? She laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. You've been lying to us for years. And now you own Morton Digital? My company? Actually, I own several companies. Morton is just the latest acquisition. I walked to my home office and returned with a tablet, pulling up some files. Here's something you might find interesting. The reorganization plan for Morton after the merger is announced next week. Jennifer snatched the tablet, her face growing paler as she scrolled. You're eliminating my position? Your own sister? I'm eliminating an unnecessary layer of management that's been holding back innovation. The fact that you occupy that position is irrelevant. Irrelevant? She stood up, anger replacing shock. I'm your sister. Now you're my sister, I said quietly. When did family matter to you before? When you were mocking my career choices? When you were belittling my little art projects at every family dinner? That was different. We were trying to help you, to motivate you to do something meaningful with your life. I walked to my office wall, where a series of patents hung in simple frames. You mean something meaningful like developing an AI visualization system that's revolutionizing everything from medical imaging to climate modeling? Something like building a company valued at over $13 million? Something like that? Jennifer stared at the patents, then at me, then back at the patents. But how? When? Remember when I dropped out of business school to study digital art and design? Everyone thought I was throwing my life away. But I saw something none of you could see: the intersection of art and artificial intelligence. While you were all climbing traditional corporate ladders, I was creating something new. And you never told us? Never told me. Would you have listened? I asked softly. Or would you have tried to take control, to make it fit your vision of success, just like you've always done? Jennifer sank back onto the sofa, deflated. Does Mom and Dad know? No, and they won't know until the merger announcement next week. Unless what? Unless you tell them. Which brings us to why I let you discover this now. I sat across from her, meeting her eyes directly. You have a choice to make, Jennifer. Right now. She tensed. What kind of choice? I'm offering you a different position in the restructured company, not executive vice president. You don't have the technical skills for what we really do. But there's a role in client relations that would suit your skills. Similar salary, less authority. You want me to take a demotion? From my own sister? No, I corrected her. I want you to take a position you're actually qualified for, from the CEO of the company that now owns Morton Digital. The fact that I'm your sister is, as I said, irrelevant. Jennifer stood up and walked to the windows, staring out at the city. I could almost see the calculations running behind her eyes. Pride versus practicality, anger versus opportunity. And if I refuse, she asked finally, then you'll receive a generous severance package, and you can explain to Mom and Dad how you lost your job when your latest company was acquired. Your choice. She turned to face me, and for the first time in our adult lives, I saw something new in her eyes. Respect tinged with fear. You've been planning this for years, haven't you? All those family dinners, all those condescending comments about your work. You sat there and took it, knowing all along that you were more successful than any of us. I shrugged. I learned a long time ago that being underestimated can be a superpower. No one watches the failing artist too closely. No one questions where she goes or what she's really working on. They just write her off. And in doing so, they give her complete freedom. Freedom to secretly build an empire, Jennifer muttered. Freedom to build something authentic, I corrected. Something that's truly mine, not shaped by family expectations or outdated definitions of success. Jennifer was quiet for a long time, looking around my penthouse with new eyes, taking in the subtle signs of wealth and power she'd missed in her initial shock. The rare art pieces that doubled as AI interfaces. The seemingly decorative screens that actually displayed real-time data from Iris Global Operations. "Why reveal everything now?" she asked finally. "Why not wait for the public announcement?" I smiled slightly. "Because despite everything, you're my sister. And I wanted to give you a chance to adjust, to make your choice before everything becomes public. Consider it a Christmas gift." "Some gift," she laughed bitterly. "You're still firing me." "No, I'm offering you a chance to be part of something genuinely innovative, instead of just playing corporate politics. But first, you need to understand something fundamental. The sister you looked down on, the one you pitied and dismissed, she never existed. She was a character I played while building something you couldn't even imagine." Jennifer walked to my coffee bar, helping herself to a cup with slightly shaking hands. "And Mom and Dad, are you going to offer them jobs too?" "Mom and Dad will find out with everyone else next week. Their reaction isn't my concern anymore. They'll be devastated that you kept this from them, that you didn't trust them." I raised an eyebrow. "Will they? Or will they be devastated that they can't take credit for my success? That they can't pretend they supported me all along?" Jennifer flinched, perhaps recognizing the truth in my words. She took a long sip of coffee, then set the cup down carefully. "I want to see the job description," she said finally. "The real one, not some watered-down version." I picked up my tablet, pulled up the file, and sent it to her phone. "Take the day to think about it, but I need your answer by tonight. The merger announcement won't wait." She nodded, gathering her things with as much dignity as she could muster. At the elevator, she turned back. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "I'm sorry for how I treated you all these years." "I know," I replied, "but this isn't about apologies. It's about what happens next." After she left, I stood at my windows again, watching the city below. In 1 week, everything would change. The question was, would my family change with it, or would they cling to their outdated perceptions until it tore us apart completely? My phone buzzed. A message from my CFO. The merger documents were ready for final signature. Things were about to move very quickly now, whether my family was ready or not. I picked up my private phone and typed a message to Jennifer. "By the way, that house you're looking at in Oakwood Heights? I own it, but there's a better one 3 doors down. Much better security system." Her response came quickly. "Show me the listing, and I've made my decision about the job." I smiled. Maybe there was hope for us after all. The week before the merger announcement felt like walking through a dream. Jennifer had accepted the new position, though not without negotiating hard for additional responsibilities. I had to admit, I was impressed by her adaptability. Within days, she'd already started learning about our AI technology, asking intelligent questions that showed she was finally looking beyond corporate politics to the actual innovation. But the real challenge lay ahead, telling our parents. "They're going to be at the merger announcement," Jennifer warned me over coffee in my penthouse. She looked different now, sharper, more focused, the designer clothes replaced by a more practical business suit. "Dad's on Morton's board, remember? He has to be there." I nodded, checking my reflection in the window. Today, I wore my CEO clothes, a perfectly tailored Armani suit that cost more than a year's rent in my fake apartment. I know. That's why I arranged for private security. "You think they'll make a scene?" "I think," I said carefully, "that they'll do what they always do. Try to take control of the situation. Try to rewrite history to make my success fit their narrative." Jennifer winced. "You're probably right. I would have done the same thing a week ago." I looked at my sister, really looked at her. The past week had changed her. The shock of discovering my success had cracked her carefully constructed worldview, forcing her to reevaluate everything she thought she knew about success, about family, about me. "You really never suspected?" I asked. "All those years?" She shook her head. "You played your part perfectly. The struggling artist, the family disappointment. God, I was so condescending to you. And you just sat there, probably laughing inside." "Not laughing," I corrected her. "Building. Every dismissive comment, every patronizing offer of help. They just convinced me I'd made the right choice in keeping my success private." My phone buzzed, a reminder that the press conference would start in 2 hours. Time to set the final pieces in motion. The Morton Digital headquarters buzzed with nervous energy. Employees clustered in small groups, whispering about rumors of the merger. Jennifer had kept her word, telling no one about my identity. But speculation ran wild about the mysterious CEO of Iris Technologies. I waited in a private room adjacent to the conference hall, watching through one-way glass as the room filled up. Board members, executives, press, and there, in the front row, my parents. My father sat stiffly in his board member's seat, checking his phone constantly. My mother sat beside him, probably wondering why Jennifer had insisted they attend. "Ready?" Jennifer appeared at my side, tablet in hand. "Almost." I turned to my assistant. "Is everything in place?" She nodded. "Security is briefed. The private exit is clear if needed." And she smiled slightly. "We have footage from every angle, just in case you want to preserve their reactions for posterity." At exactly 10 a.m., Morton's current CEO took the stage. He looked uncomfortable, sweating slightly under the lights as he began his prepared speech about exciting changes and new opportunities. My father frowned, probably sensing something was off about his old friend's demeanor. Then came the moment of truth. "Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce the CEO of Iris Technologies, the visionary leader who will be guiding Morton Digital into its next chapter." I stepped through the side door and walked onto the stage. For a moment, there was just confusion in the audience. Then I heard it, my mother's audible gasp, followed by my father's sharp intake of breath. "Good morning," I said into the microphone, my voice calm and assured. "I'm Maya Chen, founder and CEO of Iris Technologies." The room erupted in murmurs. In the front row, my father's face had gone completely white. My mother's hand was pressed to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. Over the next few weeks, Morton Digital will be fully integrated into Iris Technologies' operations. Our combined expertise in AI development and visualization technology will create unprecedented opportunities for innovation. I continued my prepared remarks, outlining the merger details and future plans, all while watching my parents from the corner of my eye. My father seemed frozen in place, his board members' confidence shattered. My mother kept looking between me and Jennifer, who stood professionally at the side of the stage, probably trying to understand when everything she thought she knew about her daughters had changed. After the formal announcement, as reporters shouted questions and cameras flashed, I saw my parents pushing their way toward the stage. Security moved to intercept them, but I held up my hand. It was time to face this. "Maya," my father's voice carried across the now buzzing conference room. "What is the meaning of this?" I turned to him, maintaining my professional demeanor. "The meaning is exactly what I just announced, Dad. Iris Technologies has acquired Morton Digital. The contracts are signed. The deal is done. But you're an artist," my mother stammered. You make websites. No, Mom. That's who you thought I was. Who you needed me to be, because you couldn't imagine success looking any different than what you expected. My father's shock was turning to anger. How dare you go behind our backs, making secret deals, buying companies out from under us? This isn't how family behaves. Family? I laughed softly. Was it family behavior when you dismissed every choice I made? When you treated me like a failure because I didn't follow your prescribed path to success? We were trying to help you. My mother protested. We just wanted what was best. What was best for me? I cut her off. Or what was best for your image of what a successful daughter should be? Security was moving closer, responding to the rising tensions. Reporters were watching eagerly, sensing drama beyond the usual corporate merger. Mr. Chen, my assistant, intervened smoothly. Perhaps we could continue this discussion in private? The press is very interested in your daughter's success story. That got through to him. Image, appearance, the things that had always mattered most. He straightened his tie, forced a smile. Of course, he said tightly. Maya, shall we discuss this as a family? I looked at Jennifer, who nodded slightly. Fine. My office. 1 hour. As security escorted them out, I heard my mother saying to my father, but how did we not know? All this time. 1 hour later, my family sat in my real office, a space that perfectly represented everything I'd built. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Holographic displays showed real-time data from Iris Global Operations. The patents on the wall told the story of innovation that had nothing to do with their expectations. Why? My father asked finally. Why the deception? Why not tell us what you were building? Because you would have tried to control it. I said simply, to shape it into your vision of success. I needed the freedom to build something authentic. By lying to us? My mother's voice shook. Pretending to be struggling while you were. Allah was becoming more successful than you could imagine. I finished for her. Yes, because every time I tried to tell you about my real work, the AI development, the technological innovations, you dismissed it as playing with computers or wasting time on art. We didn't understand, my father admitted reluctantly. We thought. You thought success only looked one way, Jennifer interrupted. Like me, the corporate executive following the traditional path. But Maya's way, it's not just successful, it's revolutionary. Our parents turned to her in surprise. You knew about this? Only for the past week, Jennifer said. And it changed everything I thought I knew about success, about Maya. I watched my parents struggle to adjust their worldview. I could almost see them trying to retrofit my success into their narrative. Of course, their daughter was a secret tech mogul. Of course, they had somehow contributed to this. Don't, I said sharply, recognizing the look. Don't try to rewrite history. Don't pretend you supported my choices. This success is mine. I built it despite you, not because of you. But we're your parents, my mother pleaded. Surely now that we know, we can be part of. Part of what? I cut her off. Part of the success. Now that it's proven. Now that it fits your definition of achievement? I stood up, walking to the window. That's not how this works. Then how does it work? My father asked, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. I turned back to them. It works like this. I run my company my way. No family interference. No attempts to take credit or control. Jennifer has already accepted these terms in her new position. New position? They looked at Jennifer, who nodded. I work for Maya now, she said simply, because she's not just my sister. She's the most innovative tech leader I've ever met. And I'm lucky she's giving me a chance to be part of it. Our parents sat in stunned silence, perhaps finally realizing just how completely their assumptions about their daughters had been upended. So what now? My mother asked finally. Now, I said, you have a choice. You can accept that your definition of success was too narrow, that your youngest daughter built something remarkable without your help or approval, or you can continue living in denial, trying to force this new reality into your old expectations. And if we choose the first option? My father asked carefully. Then maybe, slowly, we can build a new kind of relationship. One based on who I actually am, not who you wanted me to be. They exchanged looks, decades of certainty crumbling under the weight of undeniable evidence. We need time, my father said finally, to process all this. I nodded. Take all the time you need. I've waited 5 years. I can wait longer. After they left, Jennifer stayed behind. That was intense. It was necessary, I replied. They needed to understand that success doesn't always wear a corporate suit or follow a traditional path. Do you think they'll ever really understand? I looked out at the city, my city, in many ways. Maybe not, but that's not my problem anymore. I'm done hiding my success to make others comfortable. The next morning, I went to my fake studio apartment one last time, packing up the few belongings I kept there for show. As I turned to leave, I saw something that made me smile. An old sketchbook, filled with my early AI visualization designs. The same drawings my family had dismissed as doodles were now worth millions. I took the sketchbook with me, not as a reminder of their dismissal, but as proof that success often looks different than people expect. Sometimes it looks like a failed artist in a tiny apartment, secretly building an empire. Sometimes it looks like a daughter disappointing her parents by following her own path. And sometimes, just sometimes, it looks like the truth finally coming to light, forcing everyone to reconsider what they thought they knew about success, about family, and about the quiet ones they underestimated. I stepped out of the studio for the last time, leaving behind the character I'd played for so long. It was time to be fully, unapologetically myself, the artist who reimagined AI, the dropout who revolutionized tech, the disappointment who built an empire. After all, the best revenge isn't proving others wrong. It's proving yourself right. I never thought I'd be writing this story, but here I am, Alex Morgan, about to tell you how I lost everything I worked for, and then got it all back in ways nobody saw coming. 3 years ago, I joined Quantum Dynamics as a junior developer. Fresh out of college with a degree in AI and machine learning, I was eager to prove myself. The company wasn't anything special. A mid-sized software firm that created decent business applications, but nothing groundbreaking. That was about to change, though they didn't know it yet. My boss, Richard Blake, was what you'd call a corporate survivor. 20 years in the industry without creating anything significant, but somehow always managing to be near success when it happened. He had a talent for taking credit for other people's innovations. I just didn't know that when I started. Keep it simple, Morgan, he'd always say, reviewing my code. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. But that's exactly what I was doing, just not during office hours. Every night, after my regular work was done, I stayed late in my small cubicle, working on something that had been brewing in my mind since graduate school. An AI system that could predict and prevent cyber attacks before they happened. Not just basic threat detection, but true predictive defense, using advanced neural networks and quantum computing principles. I called it Guardian. The name was simple, but what it could do was revolutionary. While other security systems reacted to threats, Guardian could see them coming. It learned, adapted, and evolved faster than any attack could develop. But more importantly, it could do something no other system could. It could understand intent. My breakthrough came during a late-night coding session, fueled by energy drinks and determination. I figured out how to make the AI recognize patterns in human behavior before they manifested into actual cyber threats. It wasn't just reading code, it was reading people. "You're here late again, Alex," our security guard, Mike, would say during his rounds. "Working on something big?" "Just some personal projects, Mike," I'd reply, careful to minimize my screens. Mike was friendly, but I'd learned to be cautious. In tech, ideas are more valuable than gold. I wasn't being paranoid. I'd seen what happened to other developers who shared too much too soon. Their ideas mysteriously appeared in projects led by senior staff, their contributions forgotten. For months, I refined Guardian in secret, using my own equipment, my own time. The company's network was my testing ground, though nobody knew it. Every attempted intrusion, every potential breach, Guardian caught them all, quietly, without anyone noticing. I documented everything meticulously, storing backups in multiple secure locations. I knew I'd need proof someday. Then came the day that changed everything. I'd finally completed Guardian's core architecture. It wasn't just good, it was revolutionary. Independent tests showed it could prevent 99.9% of cyber attacks before they even began. The remaining 0.1%, those were caught and neutralized within microseconds. I decided it was time to show Richard. Despite his flaws, he was still my boss. And I thought he'd recognize the potential and help me bring it to market the right way. I scheduled a meeting for a Thursday morning, brought in my laptop, my documentation, everything needed to demonstrate Guardian's capabilities. Richard listened, his expression unreadable as I walked him through the system. "This is interesting," he said finally, leaning back in his chair. "How long had you been working on this?" "About 2 years," I replied. "I've got all the development logs, test results." "Using company resources?" he interrupted. "No, sir. This was all done on my own time, my own equipment. I have records." He held up his hand, stopping me. "Send me everything. All the documentation, all the code. I'll need to review it properly." Something in his tone should have warned me, but I was too excited, too proud of what I'd created. I sent him everything that evening, even stayed late to answer his questions. He seemed genuinely interested, asking about implementation, scalability, market potential. I went home feeling optimistic. Finally, my work would be recognized. Finally, I'd make my mark in the industry. The next morning, I couldn't log into my work computer. System access denied. The screen read. I tried again. Save message. My phone buzzed. An email from HR requesting my immediate presence in their office. Walking down that hallway, past my coworkers' curious stares, I still didn't understand what was coming. Richard was there, along with Susan from HR and 2 security guards. On the conference room table was a stack of papers. "We've reviewed your activities, Morgan," Richard began, not even offering me a seat. "You violated your employment contract by developing competing software using company resources." "What?" "No, I didn't. I have proof. We found evidence on your work computer," He continued as if I hadn't spoken. Code fragments, development logs, all during company time. My blood ran cold. He planted evidence. While reviewing my work, he'd been setting me up. That's not possible. I started, but Susan slid the papers toward me. This is your termination notice, she said, not unkindly, and a reminder of your non-compete agreement. The company retains all rights to any intellectual property developed during your employment. You can't. I began, but Richard cut me off. I can and I have. He smirked. You're just a junior developer, Morgan. Did you really think you could create something like this on your own? Security will escort you out. Don't bother taking anything from your desk. Company property. I stood there, mind racing. 2 years of work, my breakthrough, my future, all being stolen in broad daylight. But as I looked at Richard's smug face, something inside me calmed. He thought he'd won. He thought he'd seen everything. He hadn't. What Richard didn't know, couldn't know, was that Guardian had a special protocol buried deep in its core. A protocol that would activate exactly 30 days after any unauthorized attempt to modify its base code. And knowing Richard, he wouldn't be able to resist putting his own stamp on my work. I gathered my personal belongings under the guard's watchful eyes. As I walked out of the building, I heard Richard already on the phone. Yes, we're announcing it next month. The most advanced AI security system ever created. Yes, my team has been working on it in secret. I smiled slightly. In exactly 30 days, Quantum Dynamics was hosting a launch party for their revolutionary new security system. Every major tech journalist would be there. Every potential investor. Every industry leader. It would be quite a show. But that's not the end of this story. Not even close. It's just the beginning of how Richard Blake learned that sometimes the quiet ones are the ones you should watch out for. The first week after being fired was the hardest. Not because I'd lost my job. I had savings and knew I could find another position easily. No, it was watching Richard Blake systematically erase me from my own creation. Through my industry contacts, I learned that Richard had assigned a team of developers to refine Guardian. In reality, they were trying to obscure its origins, modifying code they didn't fully understand, exactly as I'd predicted. My small apartment became my command center. Multiple monitors displayed news feeds, company updates, and most importantly, Guardian's hidden diagnostic signals. You see, while Richard thought he had the complete system, he only had what I'd shown him. The real Guardian, the one I'd spent years developing, was far more sophisticated. They're making a mess of your code, said Marcus, my old college roommate who still worked at Quantum. He'd been keeping me updated, risking his own job because he believed in doing what was right. Blake's got them working around the clock, changing variable names, restructuring modules. He wants to erase any trace of your coding style. I nodded, watching my monitors. Every change they made appeared in my logs, every modification triggering silent alerts in my backup system. Keep watching, I replied. But be careful. I don't want you getting caught. Marcus wasn't my only ally. Sarah from the legal department reached out through a secure channel 3 days after my firing. What they did wasn't just unethical, she wrote. I've seen the timestamps on the evidence they used against you. They were created after you presented Guardian to Blake. I've made copies. I thanked her but warned her to stay quiet for now. The pieces were falling into place, but timing would be everything. 2 weeks after my firing, the tech blogs started buzzing. Quantum Dynamics was preparing to announce a revolutionary AI security system. The press release claimed Richard Blake had been developing it in secret for years. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't been so infuriating. But I stayed focused, watching through my monitors as Richard's team continued to modify Guardian. Every change they made strengthened the hidden protocol I'd embedded in its core. Like antibodies recognizing an invasion, the system was learning, adapting, preparing for the moment it would reveal the truth. They're planning a major launch party, Marcus informed me. Blake's invited every tech journalist in Silicon Valley. He's even gotten interest from military contractors. Of course he had. Guardian's potential applications were enormous. That's why I'd built in so many safeguards, including ethical protocols that prevented its use for offensive operations. I wondered if Richard had found those yet. Probably not. They were buried too deep, intertwined with the system's basic functions. 3 weeks after my firing, I received an unexpected email from Richard himself. "Alex, I hope you're doing well. After further review, I believe we may have acted hastily. Perhaps we could discuss a consulting role? Your insights might be valuable as we prepare for the launch." I had to admire his nerve. He was getting nervous. The modified Guardian wasn't behaving quite as expected. Small glitches were appearing, nothing major, but enough to worry someone taking credit for a system they didn't understand. I didn't respond. A few days later, another email arrived, this time offering a substantial settlement in exchange for my technical assistance and a non-disclosure agreement. Again, I didn't respond. Richard's desperation told me everything I needed to know. They couldn't fully control Guardian. "Blake's getting paranoid," Marcus reported. "He's got the team working weekends, trying to patch inconsistencies in the system. The more they change, the more unpredictable it becomes." I smiled, checking my countdown timer. 5 days until the launch party. 5 days until Guardian's hidden protocol would activate. Sarah sent me more evidence. Backdated documents Richard had created, manipulated timestamps, forged development logs. "I've secured copies off-site," she wrote, "just in case." The final week was the hardest. Watching, waiting, knowing that at any moment Richard might realize the true nature of what he'd stolen. But he was too arrogant, too convinced of his own cleverness. The day before the launch, I received one final email from Richard. The settlement offer had doubled, along with a thinly veiled threat about making sure you never work in this industry again. I drafted a simple reply, "Looking forward to tomorrow's presentation." That evening, I checked my systems one last time. Guardian's hidden protocols were primed and ready. Every modification Richard's team had made had only strengthened its core directives. Protect truth, expose deception, reveal corruption. Tomorrow, at exactly 2:30 p.m., during the main demonstration in front of hundreds of industry leaders, Guardian would do exactly what it was designed to do. Richard thought he was presenting a security system. He didn't realize he was actually triggering the most sophisticated truth detection protocol ever created. I went to bed that night feeling strangely calm. Tomorrow would either vindicate everything I'd worked for or destroy my career completely. There would be no middle ground. As I drifted off to sleep, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from Marcus. "Everything's set for tomorrow. You should see Blake's face when it happens." Indeed, tomorrow would be quite a show, but not the one Richard Blake was expecting. The day of the launch party dawned bright and clear. I watched the live stream from my apartment as hundreds of tech industry leaders filed into Quantum Dynamics' newly renovated conference center. Richard had spared no expense. Giant screens displayed Guardian's logo, which he'd redesigned. Champagne flowed freely, and a small army of PR people guided journalists to their seats. Marcus had set up a secure feed for me, showing multiple angles of the presentation room. I could see Richard in his element, working the crowd, shaking hands with venture capitalists and military contractors. He wore a new suit that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard began precisely at 2:15 p.m., taking the stage to polite applause. Today, quantum dynamics revolutionizes cybersecurity forever. I checked my monitors. Guardian's hidden protocol was warming up, its core systems recognizing the unauthorized modifications exactly as designed. 15 minutes until activation. For the past 3 years, Richard continued, my team and I have been developing something extraordinary. An artificial intelligence security system that doesn't just react to threats, it predicts them. On the massive screens behind him, Guardian's interface came to life. I had to admit, they'd done a good job with the visual redesign. Too bad they hadn't spent as much time understanding the core architecture. Allow me to demonstrate, Richard said, moving to a computer terminal. We've prepared a simulated cyber attack. 10 minutes until activation. My phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. Board members all present. Military contractors too. Even the SEC is here. Perfect. Richard was in his element now, showing off Guardian's basic features. The system smoothly deflected his simulated attacks, drawing appreciative murmurs from the crowd. Of course, it worked perfectly. I designed it to handle threats far more sophisticated than these demonstrations. 5 minutes. But the real breakthrough, Richard announced, is Guardian's ability to learn and adapt. Watch as it recognizes patterns and... A small alert appeared in the corner of his screen. He faltered for just a moment, then continued, trying to minimize the window. But Guardian was waking up. 2:30 p.m. The massive screens flickered. Richard's demonstration froze. Minor technical issue, he said smoothly. As I was saying, unauthorized modifications detected, Guardian's voice announced, cutting through the room's speakers. Initiating system verification protocol. Richard's face went pale. He tried to override the system, but his commands were rejected. Identity verification required, Guardian continued. Analyzing development history. The screens shifted, displaying side-by-side comparisons. My original, elegant code versus the clumsy modifications Richard's team had made. Timestamps, documentation, and Git commits appeared, showing the project's true history. Primary developer identified. Alexander Morgan, Guardian announced. Current system compromised by unauthorized changes implemented by Richard Blake. The room erupted in whispers. Richard frantically typed at his terminal, trying to regain control. Displaying evidence of intellectual property theft. Sarah's carefully gathered documentation appeared on screen. The backdated files, the forged timestamps, the falsified development logs. Then came the emails. Richard's increasingly desperate settlement offers, his threats, his attempts to cover his tracks. Ladies and gentlemen, Guardian's voice continued, this system was designed with one primary directive, to protect truth and expose deception. The current demonstration has been compromised by systematic intellectual property theft. Military contractors were already heading for the exits. Board members huddled in urgent discussion. Journalists were frantically taking notes. This is ridiculous, Richard shouted, his composure finally breaking. This is just a disgruntled ex-employee's sabotage. Accessing original development servers, Guardian interrupted. The screens filled with video footage from my late-night coding sessions, security logs showing my access patterns, original design documents with my digital signatures. Then came the final blow. Guardian displayed Richard's own code modifications, showing how each change he'd made to hide my work had actually triggered more detailed documentation of his theft. System integrity compromised, Guardian announced, initiating emergency protocols. The screens went dark. When they came back online, a simple message appeared. Guardian AI security system created by Alexander Morgan, patent pending. The room exploded into chaos. I watched through the feed as Richard was approached by several grim-faced board members. In the background, I could see SEC representatives taking notes. My phone buzzed again. "Marcus, you seeing this? Blake looks like he's about to faint." I was seeing it. 3 years of work, months of preparation, all leading to this moment. But I wasn't done yet. Standing up from my monitors, I straightened my tie and grabbed my jacket. Time for phase 2. 20 minutes later, I walked into Quantum Dynamics Conference Center. The launch party had devolved into a crisis management session. Richard was surrounded by angry board members and lawyers. "Mr. Morgan," called a voice. I turned to see Linda Chen, CEO of the largest cybersecurity firm in Silicon Valley. "I believe we need to talk about Guardian's real capabilities." Over the next 2 hours, I demonstrated Guardian's true potential, not just its security features, but its ethical protocols, its learning capabilities, its ability to adapt and evolve while maintaining absolute integrity. Richard was escorted out by security, his career in shambles. The board convened an emergency session, and by evening, I had an offer. Full ownership of Guardian's patents, a substantial settlement for the theft attempt, and a new position as Chief Technology Officer at a much higher salary. But I declined. Linda Chen's offer was better. My own division, complete autonomy, and a partnership stake in her company. Plus, she understood the ethical implications of Guardian's capabilities. 1 year later, Guardian is the industry standard in AI security, protecting networks while ensuring corporate transparency. Richard? Last I heard, he was facing multiple lawsuits and an SEC investigation. Turns out Guardian wasn't the only project he'd stolen over the years. Sometimes, when I'm working late at my new office, I think about that launch party. About Richard's face when he realized what was happening. He thought he was stealing a security system, but what he really did was trigger the most sophisticated truth detection protocol ever created. The irony? If he'd just been honest, I would have worked with him to develop Guardian properly. But he chose deception, and in doing so, he armed my creation against himself. These days, companies use Guardian not just to protect against external threats, but to ensure internal integrity. Every time it catches someone trying to steal credit for another's work, I smile, remembering Richard's face at that launch party. Because sometimes the best security system isn't just about protecting data. Sometimes it's about protecting truth itself. And sometimes the quiet developer in the corner office isn't just writing code. Sometimes they're creating justice. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and for 15 years, I poured my heart and soul into building Harrison Enterprises from a modest tech company into an industry powerhouse. When I started as a junior software developer, fresh out of college, old Mr. Harrison saw something in me that others missed. While most saw a quiet girl from a small town in Ohio, he recognized raw talent and determination. "You remind me of myself when I was younger," he told me during my first performance review. "Always thinking 3 steps ahead, always seeing possibilities others miss." Those words became my anchor through countless late nights, debugging code, marathon project meetings, and endless client presentations. Year after year, I climbed the ranks, from developer to team lead, then to project manager, and finally to chief technology officer. Every promotion was earned through sweat, innovation, and an unwavering dedication to the company's success. Under my leadership, our software division transformed from a struggling department into the company's main revenue generator. I pioneered our shift to cloud computing before our competitors even understood its potential. My team developed the proprietary algorithms that would eventually become our flagship product, Harrison Cloud. But everything changed when old Mr. Harrison had his stroke. I remember that day clearly. I was in the middle of a client meeting when my assistant burst in, face pale. "Mr. Harrison, hospital. It's serious." The next few weeks were a blur of hospital visits, emergency board meetings, and desperate attempts to keep the company running smoothly while our founder and CEO fought for his life. Then came Marcus Harrison, the prodigal son, rushing back from his extended finding himself tour of Europe to take the reins of his father's company. I had met Marcus a few times over the years, usually at company holiday parties where he'd make brief appearances before disappearing to whatever exotic location caught his fancy that month. From day one, Marcus made it clear he had different plans for Harrison Enterprises. "We need to modernize," he declared in his first board meeting, dismissing 15 years of steady growth and innovation with a wave of his manicured hand. "Everything's so old-fashioned here." I tried to be diplomatic. "Perhaps we should review the company's current trajectory and success metrics before making any drastic changes," I suggested, sliding over a folder containing our latest quarterly reports. Our cloud division alone has seen 300% growth in the past 2 years. Marcus didn't even glance at the numbers. "That's exactly what I'm talking about," he scoffed. "Cloud computing? That's yesterday's news. We need to be in blockchain, NFTs, the metaverse." Over the next 6 months, I watched in horror as Marcus systematically dismantled everything we had built. He hired a parade of flashy consultants, each with their own revolutionary vision for the company. Long-standing client relationships were neglected in favor of chasing trending tech buzzwords. Valuable team members were pushed out, replaced by Marcus's former classmates from business school. Through it all, I tried to maintain stability in my department. I worked double shifts to keep our core products running smoothly while simultaneously trying to implement Marcus's latest, visionary directives. But I could see the writing on the wall. The final confrontation came on a rainy Tuesday morning. I had just finished a presentation showing how Marcus's latest initiative, a luxury NFT marketplace for digital yacht ownership, had burned through millions in development costs without generating any revenue. "These numbers can't be right," Marcus snapped, his designer suit creasing as he leaned forward aggressively. "You're just too stuck in your old ways to see the potential." "The numbers don't lie, Marcus," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "We've lost 3 major clients this quarter alone. If we don't course correct," he cut me off, standing up so abruptly his chair toppled backward. "The only thing that needs correcting is you. You're the problem here, Sarah. You and your outdated thinking are holding this company back." I maintained my composure, even as I felt 15 years of dedication being crushed under the weight of his contempt. "I've given everything to this company, Marcus. Your father—" "My father isn't here anymore," he shouted, face reddening. "This is my company now, and I don't need some small-town nobody telling me how to run it. You're fired. Get out." The office fell silent. Dozens of faces turned away, pretending not to witness my humiliation. I slowly gathered my things, my mind already racing ahead to what needed to be done next. As I reached the door, Marcus couldn't resist one final jab. "Good luck finding another job at your age. Maybe try something more your speed, like teaching basic computer skills at the local library." I turned back, meeting his smug gaze with a calm smile that seemed to unnerve him slightly. "Thank you for the suggestion, Marcus, but I already have something lined up." What Marcus didn't know, what none of them knew, was that 5 years ago, I had started my own company on the side. Atlas Industries began as a small consulting firm, leveraging my expertise in cloud computing to help other companies modernize their infrastructure. While Harrison Enterprises had my loyalty during business hours, my nights and weekends were devoted to building something of my own. Those basic computer skills, Marcus mocked, had attracted an impressive client roster. Under the guidance of my carefully chosen CEO, who served as the public face of the company while I remained a silent owner, Atlas Industries had grown into one of the most respected names in enterprise cloud solutions. And tomorrow morning, Harrison Enterprises would be desperately pitching their services to Atlas Industries, unaware that the worthless employee they had just fired was actually the owner of the company they were trying to impress. As I drove home that evening, my phone buzzed with a message from my Atlas Industries CEO. "Everything's set for tomorrow's meeting. You sure you want to handle this personally?" I smiled, thinking of Marcus's smug face and what it would look like when he realized the truth. "Absolutely," I replied. I wouldn't miss this for the world. The Atlas Industries headquarters occupied the entire top floor of the city's most prestigious office building. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of the skyline, while the minimalist decor spoke of quiet confidence rather than flashy excess. I stood in my private elevator, watching floor numbers tick upward, mentally preparing myself for what was about to unfold. "Good morning, Ms. Mitchell." My assistant Emma greeted me as I stepped out. After 5 years, she was one of the few who knew both sides of my life. The silent owner of Atlas Industries and the now former CTO of Harrison Enterprises. The Harrison team arrived 15 minutes ago. Mr. Marcus Harrison is quite vocal about the wait. I smiled, adjusting my tailored blazer. Gone was the intentionally understated wardrobe I'd worn at Harrison Enterprises. Today, I dressed the part of a CEO who could make or break a company's future. "How long have they been waiting?" 20 minutes, Emma replied, a hint of amusement in her voice. "Mr. Harrison has mentioned his important position approximately 7 times. Well, I checked my reflection in the brushed steel walls. Let's not keep them waiting any longer." The main conference room fell silent as I entered. Marcus stood at the head of the table, mid-rant about the disrespect of being kept waiting. His new VP of sales, Derek, a former fraternity brother he'd hired to replace our veteran sales director, sat nearby, fumbling with presentation materials. Several board members, including Thomas Chen, who'd always supported Marcus despite his reckless decisions, occupied the other seats. Finally, Marcus exclaimed, not bothering to hide his irritation, "Do you have any idea who we—" His voice died in his throat as I walked to the head of the table. The color drained from his face so quickly, I thought he might faint. "Sarah?" He choked out my name like it physically pained him. "Good morning, gentlemen." I kept my voice professional, setting my briefcase down with a quiet click that seemed to echo in the stunned silence. "I apologize for the delay. Shall we begin discussing Harrison Enterprises' proposal to Atlas Industries?" Derek dropped his presentation remote. Thomas Chen's mouth opened and closed without producing sound. But Marcus looked like he'd seen a ghost. This is impossible, he stammered. You can't be. Where is Richard Stone? We're supposed to meet with the CEO of Atlas Industries. I sat down, nodding to Emma, who began distributing folders. Richard Stone is an excellent CEO, but he reports to me. I'm Sarah Mitchell, founder and owner of Atlas Industries. I paused, enjoying the way Marcus seemed to shrink with each word. Though you might remember me better as the small-town nobody you fired yesterday. The silence that followed was absolute. Marcus had gone from pale to ashen, his designer suit suddenly seeming like an ill-fitting costume. Derek was frantically flipping through the documents Emma had distributed, his sales bravado completely evaporated. This isn't possible, Marcus repeated weakly. Atlas Industries is $1 billion company. $1.7 billion as of last quarter's valuation, I corrected him. Though I suppose someone stuck in their old ways like me shouldn't brag about numbers. Thomas Chen found his voice first. Sarah, all these years, while you were our CTO, I built Atlas Industries in my spare time, I confirmed. Nights, weekends, vacation days, all while giving Harrison Enterprises my absolute best during working hours. Unlike some. I glanced at Marcus. I understand the value of hard work and loyalty. Marcus's face flushed red. If you own Atlas, why did you stay at Harrison Enterprises? Why work for us at all? Because your father believed in me, I said simply. He gave me a chance when no one else would. I wanted to honor that trust, help build his legacy. I stood up, walking slowly around the table. But you, Marcus, you took that legacy and treated it like a toy. You pushed out valuable employees, alienated loyal clients, and chased trending buzzwords instead of building sustainable growth. I stopped beside Marcus's chair. Yesterday, you told me to try teaching basic computer skills. Today, you're here because Harrison Enterprises is bleeding clients, burning through cash, and desperately needs Atlas Industries' help to survive. Ironic, isn't it? Marcus slumped in his chair, the full weight of his mistake finally hitting him. The client meetings you handled, the relationships you built, they're all moving to Atlas now, aren't they? I returned to my seat, opening one of the folders Emma had distributed. Not all of them. Only the ones who recognize the value of working with a company that puts their needs first. By my last count, that's about 60% of Harrison's major clients. You can't do this, Marcus protested, but his voice lacked conviction. It's not fair. Fair. I raised an eyebrow. Like how you treated the employees who built your father's company. Like how you dismissed 15 years of my dedication because you thought I was beneath you. I pulled out a document and slid it across the table. Here's what's going to happen. Atlas Industries is prepared to acquire Harrison Enterprises. The terms are non-negotiable. You can either accept our offer or watch as your father's company continues its decline under your leadership. You want to buy us out? Thomas Chen asked, already reaching for the document. Not quite, I corrected him. Atlas Industries will assume control of operations. Marcus will step down as CEO, effective immediately. The board will be restructured, and the company will return to the principles that made it successful under Mr. Harrison's leadership. Marcus shot to his feet, his chair clattering backward. You can't do this. I won't let you. Marcus, Thomas Chen cut him off sharply. Sit down and be quiet. You've done enough damage. He turned to me, his expression grave. The terms of this offer, They're more generous than we deserve. I'm not doing this for revenge, I said quietly. Your father built something meaningful, Marcus. Something that provided jobs, supported families, created real value in the world. I won't let you destroy that because of your ego. The next hour passed in a blur of signatures and legal requirements. Marcus sat in stunned silence as his authority was stripped away piece by piece. When it was done, when Harrison Enterprises officially became a subsidiary of Atlas Industries, I stood to conclude the meeting. One last thing, I said, looking directly at Marcus. Clear out your office by the end of the day. Emma will show you out. As they filed out of the conference room, I heard Derek mutter to Marcus, Dude, you fired the wrong person. Standing at the window, watching the city spread out below, I felt no satisfaction in Marcus's humiliation. This wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting what his father had built, about ensuring that good people didn't suffer because of one man's arrogance. Emma appeared at my side with a coffee. Was it worth it? Keeping Atlas a secret all these years. I thought about old Mr. Harrison, still recovering in his hospital bed. I thought about the employees at Harrison Enterprises who could now stop worrying about their jobs. I thought about the clients who would continue receiving the quality service they deserved. It wasn't about keeping secrets, I said finally. It was about building something meaningful, something that could make a difference when it really mattered. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. Marcus might have been defeated, but he wasn't done fighting, and what he did next would force me to defend not just Harrison Enterprises, but everything I had built. Marcus Harrison might have lost control of his company, but wounded pride can be dangerous. I should have known he wouldn't accept defeat gracefully. The first attack came 3 days after the acquisition. I was reviewing quarterly projections when Emma burst into my office, her usual composure shattered. Sarah, you need to see this. She handed me her tablet, open to a major tech news website. The headline made my blood run cold. Atlas Industries, ACQUI, of Harrison Enterprises, NDRNVSTIGATL, for INSIDER Trading. The article, citing anonymous sources close to the situation, suggested I had used my position as CTO to manipulate Harrison Enterprises' value, making it vulnerable to Atlas's takeover. It was a clever angle, one that played perfectly into Marcus's narrative of betrayal. Get our legal team on this immediately, I told Emma, already reaching for my phone, and set up a meeting with the board for. My phone buzzed with an incoming call. Thomas Chen. Sarah. His voice was tight with concern. Have you seen the article? Yes. Marcus's handiwork, I assume. He's not just throwing accusations around, Thomas warned. He's filed formal complaints with the SEC. He's claiming you deliberately sabotaged projects, drove away clients, all to devalue the company for Atlas's benefit. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. The same projects he ordered us to abandon, the same clients he alienated with his visionary pivots. You and I know that, but perception matters. The market is already reacting. He was right. By afternoon, Atlas's stock had dropped 12%. Several major clients put their contracts on hold, waiting to see how the scandal would play out. Marcus had found the perfect way to hurt me, by threatening everything I'd built. But he'd forgotten one crucial detail. I had receipts. Lots of them. I spent the next week working with our legal team, compiling evidence. Every project Marcus had killed, every client relationship he'd damaged, Every reckless decision, all meticulously documented. Emails, meeting recordings, financial reports, a perfect paper trail of his mismanagement. Then came the counterattack. Ladies and gentlemen, I addressed the hastily assembled press conference, cameras flashing as I took the podium. Recent allegations have been made about the circumstances surrounding Atlas Industries' acquisition of Harrison Enterprises. Today, I'm releasing all documentation related to that acquisition, including evidence that tells the real story. One by one, I laid out the facts. Marcus's decision to abandon profitable product lines for speculative ventures, the mass exodus of experienced employees, the millions wasted on his NFT marketplace and other failed initiatives, each point backed by irrefutable evidence. Furthermore, I continued, I'm announcing that Atlas Industries will be establishing the Harrison Innovation Fund, a $50 million investment in emerging technology companies. This fund will honor the legacy of James Harrison, focusing on the principles of sustainable growth and genuine innovation that he championed. The reaction was immediate. Atlas's stock rebounded. Clients who had wavered reached out to reaffirm their commitment. But the most significant response came from an unexpected source. 2 days after the press conference, I received a call from the hospital. Old Mr. Harrison wanted to see me. He was sitting up in bed when I arrived, looking frailer than I remembered, but with the same sharp intelligence in his eyes. A newspaper lay on his lap, open to an article about the Harrison Innovation Fund. "Sit down, Sarah," he said, gesturing to the chair beside his bed. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told him about building Atlas Industries, about trying to protect his legacy, about Marcus's attacks, and how I defended against them. He listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I always knew Marcus wasn't ready," he said softly. "I tried to teach him that success isn't about quick wins or flashy moves. It's about building something that lasts." He looked at me, a hint of his old smile returning. "You understood that, didn't you?" "I had a good teacher," I replied, feeling tears prick at my eyes. He reached for my hand, his grip surprisingly strong. "The Innovation Fund, using my name for that. Thank you. It's your legacy," I said simply. "It should help build more success stories." The next morning, Marcus made his final move. He called a press conference of his own, clearly planning another attack. But before he could speak, his father was wheeled onto the stage. James Harrison took the microphone, his voice weak but clear. "I've watched recent events with great interest. My son claims his company was stolen from him. He's wrong. Harrison Enterprises wasn't stolen, it was saved. Saved by someone who understood its true value, who protected its legacy when others would have squandered it." The room erupted in camera flashes as Marcus stood frozen, watching his last attempt at revenge crumble. "Sarah Mitchell," Mr. Harrison continued, "has my full support and gratitude. The Harrison Innovation Fund she established proves what I've always known. She understands that true success isn't measured by quarterly profits or trending technologies, but by the positive impact we create in the world." Marcus left the stage without a word. It was the last time I saw him in person, though I heard he started a cryptocurrency venture in Miami that failed within 6 months. 1 year later, I stood in the newly renovated Harrison Enterprises lobby, now a division of Atlas Industries. The building had been modernized, but we kept the core elements that made it special, including the wall of employee photos that Mr. Harrison had always maintained. "Ms. Mitchell?" A young developer approached, clutching a laptop. "I had some ideas about improving our cloud infrastructure. if you have time to look." I smiled, remembering another young developer who'd once nervously pitched ideas to a CEO who took the time to listen. "Of course. Let's hear what you've got." The Harrison Innovation Fund has since helped launch dozens of successful startups. Old Mr. Harrison serves on its advisory board. His health improved enough for part-time work. And me, I still keep my old Harrison Enterprises ID badge in my desk drawer, not as a reminder of Marcus's humiliation, but as a reminder that success isn't about revenge or proving others wrong. It's about building something meaningful, something that outlasts personal victories or defeats. Sometimes the best response to those who underestimate you isn't to prove them wrong immediately. It's to build something so significant that when they finally realize their mistake, it doesn't matter anymore. As for that small-town nobody, Marcus once mocked, she now runs a technology empire worth billions. But more importantly, she's creating opportunities for other nobodies to prove their worth, just as old Mr. Harrison once did for her. Because in the end, that's what real success looks like, not tearing others down, but building others up. And that's a legacy worth protecting.